Welcome back, everyone. It is the Apex Legends Global Series. How many of y'all stayed up late last night or got up early this morning to watch the first match day of APAC North? Because congratulations to FC Destroy for taking the lead on that. Let me just tell you, some interesting action that happened that day. But we're going to turn the tides and focus on the EMEA region to kick off the action today. The likes of Vexed Gaming ascend to R1C, nearing the halfway point of Split 2. I'll be your host today, Spider Tiff, but I could not do it alone. I am so excited to be joined alongside the two legends themselves. Onset, how are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Honestly, it's pretty crazy to think that we're already in match day 5. We've had 4 gone. It seemed like we've only been here a few weeks, and all of a sudden we're getting to the crunch part of the season where we're really starting to see some teams put under pressure either to qualify or to hold on to those top spots. So I think today is going to be a real test of that, not just for players and teams, but for those final moments of games as well, for the IGLs, those big calls that have to be made, that are the difference between 5 points maybe or coming out with a huge win with a huge amount of points that can make a difference.
Hey, the pressure is definitely real. A lot of teams enacting some changes we'll see here today. But Gaskin, how are we feeling today?
This is where we start to look at maths. I know Onse doesn't really like maths, and that's probably the only reason why he works with me, because I don't mind maths. This is where numbers are going to start to come into the equation a little bit. Can people realistically get to playoffs? Has anyone actually already achieved playoffs, judged from what we've seen from previous splits? There's so much that we can talk about, of course, that we'll get into, but I think ultimately the lobbies are going to be a little bit frantic today. There's going to be a lot of nerves, and I think this is going to be one of the best game weeks that we've had so far.
Look, I'm ready for one of the best game weeks thus far, and I like your comment on math there, man, and I'm going to let Gaskin handle all of that. I know I saw Onset with a calculator just a little bit earlier, ready to fact check you, but look, I'm excited as well, and some things that we need to talk about, right? The thoughts on this split this season thus far. These legend comps, man, they have been really interesting. I was watching APAC North this morning, and they were kind of sticking to the guns of what they were utilizing in Split 1. A little less Watson per se, but I was doing some research on set. Cat Seer Valk, the primary most popular legend composition that we have seen thus far, was only picked 3 times overall in Split 1.
It's been an interesting few weeks, I think, for all of the teams, for all the players to work out what works for them. And I think that's the key thing to say. It's not so much what is going to work in the meta after the theory crafting has been done. Once you've seen the patch notes, once you've had a few scrims under your belt, now it's about what actually is working for your team. And I think we're going to see a few squads go back to some comfort picks, even though we might have seen some nerf to some legends for whatever reason coming into season 16. I think now teams are trying to put something together that is going to guarantee them comfort on their legends more than trying to experiment and find a way to get points otherwise. So it's interesting for sure. And I still think we're going to see some surprises today.
Look, I love surprises. I'm not going to lie, but that's tough, right? You want to go back to those comfort picks. And Gaskin, we think about those moments where people are kind of utilizing what they feel comfortable on. Do you think we'll see anything or any of those surprises that Onset is talking about? Like, that's what I'm looking for. What do you think those surprises are going to be?
I think that when you get a lobby like today where people are desperate for points, people are going to start clinging to whatever they can that thinks is going to create success, whether that is going back to comfort picks, going to a composition that maybe was better for them in previous splits, or something that maybe is just a little bit different because they're like, oh, well, we think this counters a certain legend, or maybe we'll use a fuse because we think that will help us against all the cat walls that are coming up. There's so much different things that people can experiment with, and it's naturally going to happen in these later rounds because people are so desperate for points.
Well, I think that's a really great point to bring up, is the points. Let's go ahead and cut on over to the regular season standings, see where things kind of align right now, and then we can talk about moving forward. Obviously, Fire Beaver's currently at the top, 113 eliminations, 62 points, but the gap is starting to close in. You can look all the way down to essentially 1st through 6th place Onset, Ascend, still vying for the top spot.
Still holding on, still trying to make their way towards that 1st place, like you say. It's also good to keep in mind as well that some of these teams have played one game day more than others, so those points can change very, very quickly indeed. And I think when you're looking at these standings, you've got your eyes on some of the teams that we're going to be watching today, the likes of Vex. They've got extra game day, they could chase down Fire Beavers at the top. And I think SAF Esports is an interesting one to keep an eye on, as well as 2R1C. Both of them have been pretty consistent so far in this split and certainly have a chance of hitting those qualification spots.
And consistency really is that starting factor. Ascend, typically the most consistent team that we saw in Split 1, kind of carrying it over to Split 2. But Gaskin, it's Aurora. Names like that you wouldn't have typically seen this far down, right? Like, this is tough for them.
Yeah, it's been a very different Aurora, that's for sure, and maybe an even more different Aurora today, which we'll allude to a little bit later on. There's a few names here that I would have expected to be a little bit higher. There's still a lot of teams that I have a lot of question marks about, Element 6 being one of them. I don't feel like they found their identity just yet. V2, an incredible 3v3 fighting team, but just, again, not finding the zone endings, or they're not getting those circles predictions quite right. And I think that a lot of teams are just learning as they go throughout this split, and that's what's created such exciting rounds.
Well, you definitely said it best. It's kind of that identity crisis that a lot of teams are struggling. And for the teams that already found it to start off with, I feel like they're kind of finding more success and being consistent thus far. Reply Totem, LCDF, Morningstars, you know, they've had really good pop-off moments, but haven't found their stride just yet. But let's go ahead and cut on over to the participants that are going to be duking it out. Groups A versus C today. These are some of my favorite matchups. It's just an absolutely action-packed. And when I look at this, immediately I see teams like you mentioned it, Startified Esports, Vex Gaming, your winners from that initial matchup on set.
Yeah, it's going to be a very competitive lobby today. And like you mentioned, there's a few of those teams you saw in the top half of those standings that want to hold on to those places for sure. Maybe even chase down that 1st place. We mentioned Vex Gaming as one of those teams. But we always talk about the top. We talk about qualification. It's also about keeping your spot in the Pro League as well. So everybody at this stage of the season, like Dan said, it's all about being desperate for points. You'll take them any way you can. If it's KP, if it's placements, you don't care at this point in the season. You just want to make sure you've got a big number next to your name when that game ends.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. I think that you mentioned it perfectly. You want to avoid relegation, right? You want to just keep your spot in Pro League. Granted, yeah, Split 2 playoffs, that is the ultimate goal here. But in general, you just want to make sure that you are not having to go through the qualifiers next time. But this is one of those really interesting moments. You kind of alluded to it a little bit. We got to talk about briefly some teams, but we have special teams that we'd like to keep our eyes on for Groups A versus C matchups. And Onset, I gotta hear, who's your team to watch?
Well, my team to watch, Tiff. Thank you for asking, by the way. Very, very kind of you. I'll go with 2R1C because I always like it when you get the mirror matchups of groups we've already seen play against each other. It gives you a little bit of an inkling on how you can expect this lobby to go again. And 2R1C had their best game day by far the last time that these two groups matched up. It was the 3 wins out of 6 games for them, which overall in the standings has left them now in 7th place, which of course is a qualification spot for those split 2 playoffs. Now, it's been kind of all or nothing for them though. If you take that game day out, then they've averaged 8 points per game day, which isn't too impressive. It's not something that's usually going to guarantee you qualification, but it was this group where they really did come to the fore. I think their zone predictions were on point last time we saw them, and I think if they can do that again here, especially on World's Edge, then they're going to have a really, really strong showing. But the pressure could tell. It could be the difference maker, different lobby, different game day, different ways that teams are playing. It's going to be interesting. But I want to know, you were kind enough to ask me, Tiff, what I was thinking. I don't know what this man next to me is thinking right now, because I know that his brain has been whirring through the week.
Oh, it's always whirling and whirring, whatever W you want. We're going to talk about a team who's going to get some W's. It's Vexed Gaming, because they have been getting W's. They have really changed their fortunes, I think, since the Split 1 playoffs. Let's be honest, it was a disappointing Split 1 playoffs for them. After such an incredible regular season, we were thinking they were going to be one of the teams to watch that could maybe be victors as well, could maybe turn up on international competition, but it just didn't quite work out for them. Their edge style and strategy was very much worked out by the rest of the lobbies, and they were very much kind of sought out because of that, and maybe caught out. But now they have found a different kind of form. They said after that event they're going to be able to play zone a little bit better. They're still going to play this aggressive style. They're still going to play edge when it's right, but they are also going to know when it's time to just tuck up, make sure you get to zone, play a little bit of placement, and just play a little bit more safe, a little bit more cautious. And I do think this meta also allows them to play that way, sometimes forces them to play that way, because you can't play edge as successfully as you could because of the meta that we're seeing, because of the legends that are currently in the selection of compositions. It does change lobby to lobby. It does change depending on who's playing what and what teams are available, and do you have some of the stronger teams? Are there some of the weaker teams that maybe you can farm? Do you know if there is a rotation that allows you to take a fight in a 3v3 that is going to be isolated as well? Because as long as Vex can have isolated fights, they usually find success. They had 2 wins back-to-back last time they had these groups go up against each other, and I think they're going to be a team to watch.
They've been incredibly impressive, and shout out to Loopy, their coach, recently promoted to the head of performance. Vex is doing something really strong where they're focusing on the mental as well, and it is definitely paying off. But my team to watch today, look, everyone's been talking about it. Everyone's been keeping their eyes on them. It is going to be Aurora, and Gaskin kind of brought it up, right? They're making a changes. Sunset is in, Molly1 is out, so they'll be joining the trio as well. But friendly reminder, guys, Sunset is no stranger to Apex competition. In my opinion, one of the most underrated players in EMEA, had competed in the 2021 EMEA champs alongside Impulse and Task. So this is one of those teams that is looking to get into the Split 2 playoffs. They need to return to that Split 1 regular season form. And it's tough, right? You start out at the top, and it can be one of the heaviest falls, and you have to return to grace. I spoke with a lot of team members here that have been keeping their eyes on, and the play style thus far in Split 2 has been a little bit of a mess on their side. So I'm hoping that Sunset is that answer that they really need to focus on. So will they kind of commence their journey back to the top in the form of Aurora that we all know and love? We will see today, but we will be kicking things off with World's Edge to start for the first 3 maps, and then heading on over to Storm Point. That is going to be the last time we see this rotation, as in the next match day things will get shaken up. But I mean, guys, those are some stellar teams to watch. I can only imagine what we are going to see aside from Gaskin's math that will be happening.
I'm worried about this, by the way, like because as soon as the math starts coming into the equation, I just kind of stare at Dan blankly, and he works it out. Like, he's really good at it, and hopefully we can keep you up to date. I'm just gonna let Dan look after that, but I want to kind of touch on Aurora as well. I think we were kind of looking at teams to watch, so like one of us needs to highlight this, one of us needs to talk about it. But what a time in the season to make that change. They could have played another couple of game days and see how things went, but They looked at what's happened. They looked at the fact that they weren't happy, and they made the change now to give them time to adapt, to get scrims under their belt, and find the pattern of form they want to find. I think it's a brilliant move. I mean, it's unfortunate, of course, if you're the player who falls out, you want to be on that roster, you want to put things right, but sometimes it's all about making things fresh, making things feel new, and I think Aurora have done it at the right time.
Yeah, no, that's actually impeccable. And I was doing a little bit of math, Gaskin, so don't judge me. You can correct me if you think I'm wrong. But after 2 match days in Split 1, Aurora had 37 points. In Split 2, after 2 match days, they're sitting at 16 points. So the journey is definitely, yeah, it's less. That's right.
Math adds up. It definitely works. I mean, it's, you know, when we look back at previous seasons, of course, the meta is different, but there is a drastic difference there. And I think there probably was reason for change. It's very brave to do so, but we'll have to see whether it pays off.
I mean, that's the question, right? Will it pay off? Well, I guess it's gonna be time to see, because map number 1 underway, guys. Onset Gaskin, take it away.
Thank you very much, Tiff. And I've got a smile on my face, Dan, like I always do, because we go before these shows start, we've got a little bit of a rehearsal. We go through a few things and we make sure we're all up to speed on what we want to be talking about. But as soon as I know we're about to go into the game, that's when things become unpredictable. And unpredictable, I feel, is going to be the theme of this week. We're almost halfway through the split now. The games have just flown by. The game days have gone. They're dusted. They're in the books. And now it is the time where every single week, and not even every single week, every single game can have a huge influence on who we see qualify for those split 2 playoffs.
Yeah, it's very easy for us to look at what happened last time these two groups faced and who was winning and who was able to get, you know, the most points. But remember, this is a battle royale. Things change. The zone's going to be different. The drops won't necessarily be the same because there's people contesting as well. Who's going to be winning those fights? Are they going to be able to get that POI for themselves? Everything can change here in this match day.
Well, as you can see, the teams are already dropping out of the dropship, and we will have a few contests. One over at Climatize that you can already see going down as well. There might also be a little bit of a contest going down at Lava Siphon, although it looks like Vexed have actually claimed that as their own. So we'll keep an eye on those. We'll keep you up to date on how those contests do go. But I think a lot of what is going to be important today, Dan, is if you're one of those teams just outside of that top 10, those qualification spots, and you see a zone going your way, you have to make the most of it. There's no room for mistakes anymore. I think not just the EMEA region, but across all regions. For if you have priority to zone, and with how strong the zone meta can be at this time of the season, you need to make the most of it. You cannot let those opportunities slip through your fingers.
And a lot of that can come down to whether you feel like you're comfortable with loot as well. If your loot is not great, you have to make that decision of, do we still think placement is going to be good enough? Can we pick up some kills on the way when people are entering and we somehow get that loot off them, and maybe we're gifted things? There are so many decisions that has to be made when that zone does pull in towards you. So we'll have to see what does happen and when we get that info. But from what I can see, it looks like we're going to the northwest side of the map, but we're already seeing a contest here.
We are indeed, and this is in Fragment. There's a little bit of a fight going down, and Kashera's going to get that first knock. So Bitfix Gaming and Ascend, we knew this was going to be one of the contests that was going down. And you spoke to Kashera, you sent him a DM asking the question, you know, what's the plan here? He says, oh, Bitfix Gaming are going to be in death boxes, essentially, if they dare to contest us. And you got to say, kind of looking at how it's gone at the moment.
Yeah, I said, are you going to be having a contest? And he was certainly saying, well, we're not going to back down. And I think that's important, that you have to really just play for what you think is your POI, because as the season develops and when you get to playoffs, people need to know what is yours and what you own so that you can scare them away. If you have been consistently winning your fights when you are contested, then I think it means it's less likely people are going to try when it gets to land. But Ascend, at least they've come out on top here. I think they might even be a contest over on Storm Point as well. So I think it's going to be a day of contest for a couple of these squads. But very excited to see what Ascend do today. Kashira also said that they've got something up their sleeves to try and win today. They've enjoyed coming second and third and fourth, but they want to actually top for the day to ensure they can get even closer to securing their playoff spot. But that's the circle I was talking about, heading up to the northwest.
Yeah, it looks like a few teams have made the bet that it's going to be going north of Trials, maybe a Trial Zone, maybe a Lava Fisher Zone as well, but that gets completely taken out of the equation as we do see where that beacon information is going to send us. So an option maybe for one of the zones down by Countdown, but it is looking like you're saying, Dan, that northwestern zone just outside of Trials is going to be where we take ourselves for that endgame.
Yeah, and you were talking about teams rotating early. I mean, Element 6 dropping over here towards Skyhook, as are V2. They are splitting that POI. So they're going to be two teams that should be getting into a position where they take one of the priority spots. SAF and Game of Drones also just down below them at Countdown and Lava Fisher. So those are the four teams that would have had the quickest rotation to this circle if they had beacon information as well, right? So it's one of those things that if you're going to prioritize beacon information and prioritize playing that zone, you're going to be in a good spot. But if you are a team who likes to take those fights, maybe you would have pushed out a little bit after you've gone through your looting phase.
It's an interesting zone for a lot of teams for a lot of reasons. I always enjoyed this one because it feels like you see teams desperate to make a quicker rotation as they can if they have prior to this zone, due to the fact that if you can get the northern side of this zone, you're pretty much set up for the end game. It's when you a little bit late, maybe you're unfortunate and landing down on the southern side of World's Edge here, and you have to fight your way through Skyhook, through the multiple buildings, the multiple floors, and it's kind of difficult to negate a lot of the risk involved with so many teams that pile up on top of each other and share those buildings towards the end game. It's difficult to navigate your way through, but that's, again, where your IGLs earn their money. It's sometimes, hey, we know we're not going to be able to get into this zone. We're going to play for some KP. We're going to try and pick up some kills on our way to this zone. And if we can force our way towards that end game fight, then brilliant, because we would have already fought. We might have a tougher rotation, but we're certainly going to have the red Evo armors if we make our move.
I was going to say, like, one of my even least favorite rotations is going on the west side of Trials and trying to go through the open area just where SAF are looking out towards there, and actually where we get a nice little overview of. There is so much open space if you push that western side, and you're going to be shot from people in Trials, on top of Trials, who are already up towards Skyhook as well. So it means you are usually forced through Skyhook as well. So it's going to be one of those things where you have to be well aware of who's going to be in what position. Are you going to have a Skyward dive to maybe get over the top of them? And if you are going to Skyward dive, you need to have an idea of where you're going to be landing, because a lot of these places are going to be taken. Trials already taken by SAF and J-Lings at the moment. They're both kind of posturing up against one another, but it looks like J-Lings are going to be more than happy to hold just one side of it.
Yeah, I mean, just look at how J-Lings have rotated, right? They landed over at Overlook, and they're already inside of Trials, inside of this first few moments of the game. That's how confident they are on the zone call, and this is a position you can play for quite some time. And it's already busy, zone, and this is something I was expecting on World's Edge especially. Given the fact that everyone is desperate for points at the moment, it is going to be a nervy game one. Nobody's going to be thinking about being aggressive, picking up kills. Everybody's going to be thinking about, don't be the first team to get eliminated and get 0 points in game number one. We are seeing this continuation of a little bit of a poke and a prod battle between SAF and J-Lings just inside of Trials, but I feel like mistakes are going to be amplified today, Dan, and you just can't afford to make them at this point of the split.
No, you can't. I mean, not even just this point in the split, but I think now as we are starting to get to a point where all teams have worked out the meta, people are going to be on their A game. Like, if you see a team making a mistake and you can capitalize on it, whether that be a poor rotation and you can suddenly take their spot, whether it is a bad move when it comes to a 3v3 fight and you can suddenly take the height off them, like all these little tiny decisions that can suddenly change the game for you could change not just your entire round today, but also could change your entire split. But we've not had too much skirmishes early on, but it looks like Vexed are looking to try and change that here.
Yeah, Vex did get the first knock, and it was Robin who went down on the other side of things. Matafe's going to get that 0 down with a team up on height. They're going to cause him a few problems, but there is the Catalyst wall just to keep Matafe safe and give him a little bit of cover to play behind. Tyler's going to try and take to the skies here with the Jets to see if he can maybe just distract initially, or maybe force a little line of sight for his teammates to get involved. Those shots not quite connecting, though. Somewhat surprising to see from such an established controller player.
They're very aware of what could happen and potential third parties as well. These are one of the most annoying fights to take when you've got a team on top of this rock, especially if you don't have the ability to get up. It's going to be down to Tyler really to try and maybe initiate some of this damage, but then Vex need to be in a position to take advantage of it as well. And you can see Tyler is reluctant to just jet himself up, because then you're so vulnerable of being one clipped. And it looks like Vex, they said, you know, we'll just take the 1 KP and we'll maybe leave you guys up there for now.
Yeah, I mean, just interesting to see, isn't it? The Vexed of Split 1, you get the feeling they would have gone, okay, let's try and push this. I mean, maybe they would have been running Horizon, things would have been different, right? They can use that grav lift, but it's surprising to see Vexed almost showing a bit of maturity in that position. They're going to pick up the 1 KP. They know if that team rotates behind them and mirrors them, that they're going to be in a 2v3, and they should be able to take it. But speaking of 2v3s, it's a 3v3 at the moment. As I say that, though, it's going to become a little bit one-sided as V2 pick up the first knock as Joke picks up SMS 7.
So I've given so much gas to V2 on how good they are at fighting and what an incredible team they are to watch. And We'll have to see now whether that is actually going to prove to be true, as they have an opportunity to take a straight 3v3. It's actually a 3v2 as they're chunking with the PK, and V2 will get the white. Morning Stars, our first team to be eliminated here then on set. So we're going to see a lot of these Skyhook battles going down, because teams are naturally going to start making their way into these buildings, hoping that there is no one at the inn, and they're going to knock on the door and then ring the doorbell, and then suddenly someone's going to open it with a peacekeeper, and that's what you see.
Hate it when that happens. It's very, yeah, especially
every Halloween.
It's horrible. But I think one thing's going to be interesting to see here with Skyhook as well. I wonder if any teams are going to be running Wraith in this lobby, because that can be a real difference maker towards that end game for the micro rotations. We know that the Catalyst Wall can certainly provide cover if you need to rotate, but with so many buildings and so many different elevations of these buildings to try and rotate from, the Catalyst Wall isn't enough sometimes, because you can't cover the height. Speaking of covering things, Bitfix Gaming will finally be eliminated, but the major story in the last few moments, Dan, Ascend eliminated. Just caught that in the kill feed as we have 17 squads now remaining.
I mean, Ascend and Bitfix Gaming eliminated in 19th and 18th. I think that says it all, really, doesn't it? The teams that were contesting one another, the teams that were fighting and scrapping with one another, and it really does show how important it is to either A, win that contest early on so it's done, so it's dusted, or you avoid it completely, because otherwise you can both be punished because of it. So Ascend not able to have the start maybe that we would have expected with their consistency so far today, and it could be just one of those days with the contest going down.
E6 are in a really good spot as well. Keller Gaming just kind of hovering on the building outside of, well, just will be inside just about the next zone when it does come into close, but they will have a pretty good rotation to the north. This building's very good to access that open ground. You can play under the bridge, you can play around that truck, but E6 up on that drill tower just to the other side of the mountainous range of Trials. That's the priority spot to hold down, in my opinion. You can watch all the rotates from the Trial side. You've got the height to really damage teams as they try and come in. Plus, you can put pressure onto that hill house building, which is right in the northern tip of where this zone is going to go. So E6, we mentioned, struggling for identity for sure when it comes to composition, but in a great spot early on and certainly identified where they want to play.
See, it's strange you say you want teams to be going north, because certainly TV series and growing up in England, I've always tried to avoid the north, but you're completely right. That's where you want to be right now.
I can't believe you just called out the entirety of the north of England.
I have done.
That's brave.
It is very brave, but as a southerner, that's what we do. But you're completely right. If you have your back to that northern zone that you're talking about, you can see E6 are up there, then you can just be comfortable. You know you're not going to get peppered from behind, and you can instead put all your focus, all of your kind of utility towards the southern side or the east and western side, wherever you're going to be looking, right? But I will say there are teams who sometimes try and get a little bit brave with their rotations. If you were going to be coming from the northeast of Skyhook, you could try and force your way through to that northern side with a Valkyrie ultimate and the Skyward Dive. So just got to be careful, stay on your P's and Q's, make sure you're watching your behind as well, just a little bit. But at the moment, still teams making their way through. I can see about 9 teams who are outside of zone. And then when this zone closes, there isn't actually much space to be playing around the, 5 buildings that are going to be left in the circle in Skyhook. So there's going to be a lot of scraps in this next circle close.
Well, we've got a little bit more information as well. We've got the beacon where the zone is going to be going. We are pulling all the way west of Trials, so it's going to finish outside of that Trials door, around where E6 currently find themselves located. Interesting to see the comp being run by Aurora as well. You have the Wraith, you have the Maggie, and you do not have the Valkyrie, so they will be certainly looking to fight on edge with that composition. Passion, though, they're in a pretty good spot to hold out all of the rotations coming in from Lava Fisher and making a late assault on where that zone will be. So if they can lock this down, they can keep this, and this can completely belong to them. They could be in for a pretty good end game. I was about to say maybe the armors aren't there for them to play with. However, having a Kraber, all of a sudden you hit one shot and that armor will level up extremely quickly.
And Passion had a good week when they played each other, or a good round, should I say, when these groups played each other. They were able to get 6th place, just behind E6. They struggled with kills in some of their games. They had good placements, but bad amounts of kills. And I think that just shows they're going to be playing very zone heavy, and they maybe didn't get those games where kills naturally came towards them. But if you are patient, kills will come towards you. Speaking of patience, we saw Vexed were patient. They didn't push a little bit earlier, and they found themselves a tidy little spot for now, whilst they have the cover of the Dark Veil. But when that Dark Veil goes down, how exposed are they going to be to the elements?
I think it's a very good rotation actually for Vexed as well. They overtook traffic. I mentioned how trying to rotate through Lava Fissure, where Passion while holding down that choke can be difficult to do, especially if you find out that there's a Kraber firing at you. But for now, Vex game plan is to get into a good zone, deny that line of sight from above by using that overhang, and then try and take that priority position away from SAF, who throw the zero ult down just to force them off. So Vex trying to make the play. You can see where they want to play for this end game, and it's SAF, excuse me, who are going to have to defend.
And this is the exact area I was talking about, which is just horrible to rotate through because there's so much open field and so many teams are going to be in the area that can shoot you and pepper you. And that Dark Veil was so important for Vex just to settle down. But you can see above them, there is trouble, and it's going to be VT who are making this life a living hell for Vex Gaming.
Vex have got to try and think about this res as well as a gold knockdown, but the snades that are coming in means they won't be able to stick that res. However, there is a mobile beacon available, but it's a little bit risky to make that play right now, especially with teams flying through the skies, trying to find a spot to play, plus the team up on the height of Trials. But I actually wanted to mention how much of a difficult job the SAF have kind of on their hands with Vex around this corner, plus Jailing still inside. They've got potential to be attacked from two sides for that priority position, and seeing Vex lose one player is going to be absolutely, perfect for them. However, you can see that they've managed to get Matafe back in. He should be able to land. The loot box is there as well, so Vex might be able to play this game out as a 3.
VT are probably just thinking, all right, you keep spawning them in, we'll keep farming and getting the extra KP as well, because as soon as they see him drop, they're going to beam him. He gets beamed out of the sky, and I think he's now going to be punched back into position. You can see he was taken down, and VT will be looking from above here and making it so difficult. Game of Drones, excuse me, not VT. It was, of course, VT Torhei, but Game of Drones are able to get more KP and make this life so difficult for Vex as Aurora get eliminated in 17th.
All the changes in the world for Aurora, the changed player, Sunset coming in, but not a change of fortunes, unfortunately, for them, especially in game number 1. A tough zone for them to get to, but not one that they would have wanted to go out to with so few points, it would appear, on the board at the moment. For esports, also eliminated, and Gaming Gladiators, a team who we haven't even really mentioned today, Dan, because with all due respect to them, they haven't really deserved to be mentioned so far in this split. They've been quiet, they haven't done too much, they're trying to force their way into zone, but here comes SPS trying to clean up the final pieces, and even though we saw GG win 1 3v3, it looks like it could be the end of their game. They will fall as we have 14 squads now finding their way towards that end zone.
14 squads who are very easily going to be chopped down quickly in the next 30 seconds as this zone closes, because look at where we're going. We're going even further northwest. So actually there's only 3, maybe 4 teams that are in the next circle, and 3 of them are on top of each other in Trials. E6 in one of the best positions in the game right now. They're holding the kind of, what do we call it? The toll station a little bit in the northwest side.
The drill tower.
I mean, I meant me personally, because I like to give things, an extra little bit of flair on my nicknames. But yeah, the drill tower is where they're going to be holding, as Vex still trying to make things work on this southwest side. So tough as a 2 here, but it looks like they are going to be giving up on any sort of respawns, and I'm really interested to see where they go here on set.
I kind of like the play, though, from Tyler and Unlucky, because they realized that being in the position they were just going to get peppered. They were getting focused from above. They heard a third-party opportunity for them to take advantage of, and they did exactly that. They got involved in that fight. They tried to clear their backs, and now they're making the Valkyrie into a position where they can play for endgame. You can see the NM are inside of that smoke as well, though, and I'm pretty sure the Vex have no idea that there is going to be a team just above them. They get shredded through the smokes. Vex Gaming, even though the idea was good, they did not spot that team out above them, and they will be eliminated.
Yeah, I think the Vex maybe saw the squad and just hoped they were able to do something, pick up a bit of KP, but it's never going to happen with the teams that were also watching on from the building just north of them. But you look at the kill feed, we're down to just 8 squads now. We lost 6 as that circle closed. SPS were the next one to be eliminated, and Game of Drones still, from this high ground and Trials, are making life so difficult for everyone below them. But they're going to have to move, right? They're going to have to make that rotation up towards the drill tower that we were talking about.
What's the play going to be here for Game of Drones? They get dropped towards zone, and they're going to drop into Trials and try and fight their way in. It looks like that might be the answer at the moment. There's Rondon is left on his own up top, and Torhei and Jules have dropped down into that central zone. Maybe they could pinch Jailings here and force their way out when that fight breaks out on that door entrance towards the west side of Trials. Where we're looking at the moment, though, you can see a couple of teams trying to hold each other out. NM trying to force their way in. They've just been delivered the loot from those 2 Vex Gaming players, but on the other side, you can see VJ's trying to have a little bit of a poke, a little bit of a prod, see if he can get some damage done, as Nightmare Esports finally have to batten back down, and 2R1C, who have been in a great spot for this whole game, are picking up the pieces.
Yeah, 2R1C will just clean things up here. Nightmare Esports get eliminated. 2R1C will have an opportunity to reset here, but you can see they're very concerned of what is going to be happening in the next 20 seconds because not only have they been able to win that engagement, but they now need to reset. They are going to be the only team on this side of the map because you can see there's so many teams here on the western side around by trials. We've got 3 teams that are going to try and force their way on this west side right now.
Oh my goodness, Nags walks around the corner and Nags does what he does best, and that is close range, cause carnage. He picks up 2 finishes onto the team outside of the door. It's going to be ANC down and Jailing survive, but only as a 2. Game of Drones now make their play. They hit the skyward dive. E6 trying to beam them out the sky as well with that charge rifle, trying to singe away at the players as they try and find somewhere to play. And this is the difficult part. You've got to put a lot of trust in your IGL to find a spot to play. Stay in the air as long as you can. Let other teams make their move and maybe try and third party.
I mean, the bins are taken, the truck's taken, the drill tower's taken. All the ideal spots in this final circle are going to be taken. So that means one thing. You have to fight. You have to go down. You have to land and just try and take a 3v3. But you can see Game of Drones have been taken. At least one player has been taken down. And now this is where vision starts to be covered. The Wraith portals, the Bangalore smokes, everything's starting to arrive just to allow people to try and get into this circle.
And who's been up on top of this tower for the entirety of the game? The first team here might be the last team standing. It's going to be E6, Element 6. We mentioned how they needed to find a little bit of an identity. Well, a game 1 win is certainly one that you want to make synonymous with your team's name. Up on that high ground still. A couple of teams portaling underneath, like you mentioned, but on the outside of all of this is Passion playing behind that rock. Are they able to force their way into these other teams? Are they able to pick up the pieces as everybody fires down on each other? And are they actually in the position to win this endgame?
It's always a difficult one with an endgame like this when you are the team that has height, because often you are the team that will be focused on. There'll be a few nades maybe thrown up towards you because you are arguably the most visible and maybe even sometimes the most vulnerable if you can hit those nades. But it depends whether you've got nades. Depends whether you've got the utility. If you have a catalyst, of course, you can send the sludge up there. You can start to do a little bit of tick damage here or there as well. But this is really going to be a game of patience now, as all these teams will wait for that circle to close in, wait for it to force someone out into an area where a fight is having to be taken, because you want to be the last team to engage. That's what we always say in a circle like this. You want the damage to already be done. 3 teams remaining. You just have to be last one to fight.
Passion on the outside of the tower behind that rock. E6 up on top and a team just below them as well. You can see Xako Hyaka and VJX trying to hold down the middle section and the bottom section of that drill tower. And the difficulty here for E6 is they have to drop at some point. They can't stay up here. And of course, when they hit the ground, they are going to be stunned for a few seconds and not be able to fire their guns. Plus, if you're looking for an armor check across people at the moment, it's not Passion, it's not E6. It's a team underneath who have the best armors to play with and might be able to last longest in this fight.
Got plenty of Seer ultimates, but I'm wondering whether the crypto drone can be a big influence in this final engagement as well. Okay, Swinney, maybe with a lot of responsibility as he gets into that drone and hits that EMP just to try and give them the advantage. But all the info being gathered as well from the Seers. You could say Passion, one of the best positions at the moment. Circle's coming towards them. They've got the Dark Veil waiting and ready just to try and separate this circle and give them as much coverage as they can and then force these other teams to fight. Here we go.
EMP is going to come in. Catwall goes down as well. The utility is being thrown as E6 make their way down to the ground, but it looks like only 2 of them may have hit the ground safely and softly. Passion have the zone on their side. That Catwall has cut it in half absolutely perfectly, but Horizon's going to have a little poke through. VJX is going to have a little prod as well. 2R1C will go down, and Passion might be able to close this one out in the final moments. One shot with a Kraber for a Mars doesn't connect, but it doesn't matter because Passion close things out. And Dan Gaskin, it was all about slicing that zone in half with that catalyst wall. The Dark Veil brings the win their way.
You know those crazy like TikTok videos where it's people get a barrel of paint and they just throw it and just see what happens? That's what the end circle looked like, right? It was just disgusting to watch at times because players were literally not having a clue where anything was except for the Seer ultimate giving them the info, and you are just hoping that you're going to hit your shots and actually hoping that they're not going to be behind some sort of object there, Tiff. But really well played in that final circle just to make sure you save that utility, make sure you save those ultimates to use it and slice that final circle perfectly to give you the most room.
Yeah, usually I like slicing pizza, but watching a final end zone being sliced in half by a catwall was equally enjoyable for me. I'm not gonna lie, but it's tough, right? We saw the catwall go up and immediately Passion just full sends to our 1 seed. They had kind of decided that that was who they wanted to focus. And that's really tough if you're 2R1C and you're positioned on the left side. Had that not happened, this could have been a totally different story.
It could well have been. I think it's very well played from Passion. They knew that that was the threat. 2R1C with the threat. E6 were going to take damage as they had to fall, and slicing the zone in half meant those teams were going to engage. If you can focus the team who is going to be taking less damage in that engagement, you know when that fight's done that you can then capitalize on the weaker team that's left and the weaker players. So I think it's just a great call. Passion played it perfectly. Like I said, wait on the outside of that drill tower. They could watch everything else that was happening, create the space for themselves to take advantage of. And I think it's just a great call in an endgame, and great calls are great, but you've got to execute as well, and they did that perfectly.
Executed to perfection, Passion to do it. But let's go ahead and take a look at the highlights. And this was rather interesting, Gaskin. You came in with a lot of insight, especially from Kashera, like, hey, we are ready to take on any challenge off rip. You want to do it? We'll send you home in a death box. And they did so in fashion, starting off with Max from Bitfix Gaming. But a lot of the comments that you guys were making when you were kind of talking about the fights, especially around V2, it was really interesting, right? They had the upper hand in that engagement inside the stairwell from the get-go.
Yeah, they did. And when it comes to Ascend and Bitfix, I think the problem is the fight was never finished. Bitfix lost a player, they ran away, Ascend probably started their looting phase, then Bitfix came back in, so then they scrapped a little bit again, and the fight was just elongated to a point where neither team was able to find any success because of it, and they both fell at the same time. I think what was the most important thing in this game, and certainly the end circle that we're about to see, is the players who are on Catalyst. And I will always stress this in the final circles. Catalyst can go through Dark Veils without having the vision impaired, so you are the one who is going to be responsible for doing that damage and giving that information. And that is a lot of pressure on your shoulders. Yeah, sure, you can go through your own teammates' Dark Veil, but if you accidentally step the wrong way and go through the other teams, your vision's going to be so cluttered and it's going to be so difficult for you to do anything. So you have to rely on your teammates' callouts, rely on the information they're giving, and of course, rely on the Seer ultimate as well.
You made an incredibly, really solid point there, especially on Catalyst, and I'd love to talk about that later. But the match 1 results are in, and Passion kicking it off strong with 8 eliminations, a 20-point game. E6, they got into position early on that tower, and they had zone for so long, but they were only able to pick up 1 elimination. So teams that had to fight their way in, 2R1C, J-Lings able to pick up an exorbitant amount of eliminations throughout. So actually, it's really sporadic. Look down to V2 on set, 6 eliminations for them as well.
Yeah, I think it doesn't surprise me too much to see that many eliminations because of the fact that it was a very difficult zone to access for some teams who are arriving late. So you're always going to see one team have to fight their way through, and there's always going to be one victor and one loser, unfortunately. But I think E6, looking at that, placement points, great. But from the position they had, the height they had, and the chokes that they were holding down and the vision they would have had on teams, I think it'd be a little bit disappointed to come out with just 1 KP when there must have been more opportunities for them to scoop a few up. So E6, even though the game plan was good for where they wanted to play from, question is, did they command the space well enough? Did they see third-party opportunities and take them? And it would look from that finish with just 1 KP that they weren't able to.
Yeah, it's really tough. Those are the questions that I would be asking as well. I know we saw a charge rifle up in the tower as well, so you know that you can get a lot of damage and capitalize on teams rotating and utilizing that. But Vexed, Aurora, teams on the back half of match number 1 that really, we had a lot of questions. Vex won a lot. They had some good success on the last matchup, and Aurora, with the changes, kind of benching Mollywan being one of the best anchors, in my opinion, in EMEA. Now Sunset up to the challenge, and they haven't really had a whole lot of time to get that trio up to speed on set.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting for me to see the game plan. And I mentioned comfort picks. I mentioned teams looking for comps that are going to bring them a comfort, how players have been used to playing on Legends for a split. And I think you look at that comp, it was Maggie, Catalyst, and Wraith, I think, which is what we saw Aurora running at certain points during split 1. So it doesn't surprise me to see them go back to the comfort pit. The problem was the zone for them is just very tough to get into, especially if you take your time to loot, and a lot of teams overtake. But it's always surprising not to see Aurora force their way into those kind of zones because it's what they've done before. So I don't want to judge too early. It's the first game that we've seen Sunset on this team. It's a zone that's tough to get into, but it's also a game that they won't want to have. All of a sudden, the questions start coming again. It's like, oh, was this the right thing to do because we had a bad game? Did we maybe you move a little bit prematurely, all this stuff, instead of, hey, we had a really good game, let's try and build on this. So Aurora's still got questions to answer.
It's definitely tough, right? Especially with a lot of people looking for answers and people kind of just asking a lot of questions surrounding that team. But I think you called it right, with just been one game. So with that being said, let's throw it to a quick break, right? Because we got match number 2 getting locked and loaded, ready to have action.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series for the EMEA region. I'm SpiderTiff, that's Gaskin. Onset is going to be taking a little bit of a break, so I have kidnapped the math wizard himself to take you guys through map number 2. What is that good? Can I call you the math wizard?
I mean, you can if you want. I think it's all a lie that I managed to live. I just use calculators and I just make sure that someone's pulling the data and stats for me just to make me look smart. But I'm very much looking forward to this game, Tiff, because I think that it was a very difficult zone for so many teams. We saw 4 or 5 squads just rotate early and they held everyone else out, especially Game of Drones, right? They made life so difficult for those teams that were arriving late. As long as we don't get the same circle, we should have a better game for a lot of those teams who struggled. And big question for me, are we going to still see those contests going down?
Yeah, it's rather challenging, right? And that was a good point. Talking about Skyhook, it's actually one of my favorite end game scenarios, right? All of the buildings, typically a lot more teams will survive, but I was actually really shocked that Ascend had gone out so early in map number 1 because they seem to excel the most in that style of zones. And hey, we could see it more being towards Epicenter. Ascend essentially splitting Fragment with GG and Bitfix's Epicenter. So the fact that they ran into each other so early on was rather interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if both teams were just trying to spread themselves out and trying to get a little bit of extra loot, because I was confused as to why it was a direct contest that early on. And this is an interesting circle for both Ascend and Bitfix Gaming, really, because their drops at Epi and Fragment West, with where this circle is currently going, they'll be thinking, all right, maybe we can position ourselves to get in one of the ideal spots, especially if they're able to get that beacon information. You can see Bitfix have got the information from the ring console at Epicenter. However, it's not going to be as comfortable for the likes of Ascend. They could maybe go get the survey beacon at Fragment East, which could at least give them the player info a little bit later. But with GG dropping there, it seems unlikely they would try and directly take that fight. But you can see why as well. Ascend are going to struggle today because they've got GG to their right, they've got Bitfix above them. You can have a lot of teams rotating from the west quickly. I'll be really interested to see how Ascend play this circle.
Well, it's rather challenging. You would think just rotating up from Fragment straight to Epi, if that is the case of where the pool is going, would be rather simple. And I was watching APAC North last night, and one of the teams made a rotation straight from Harvester, but instead of going through Fragment or Landslide, they actually hit a Valcolt and kind of rotated in through Epicenter itself. And it worked out really well, and they were able to find a lot of success. So depending on where this is going to pool, will it be like the zone I saw from APAC North? Hey, who knows? But Passion living their best life, making their way over towards Harvester. Aurora, this is their drop spot, probably still here. Hierka able to find some success on Bitfix in the elimination feed thus far.
Yeah, this is a quick U-turn. This is use whatever we can to get out, and then probably make our way potentially through the tunnel here. Unless they can just turn and manage to hit an incredible amount of damage, they might decide they want to fight it, mainly just because of the shields that are available for them. If they notice that Aurora on whites, Passion might turn, but it looks like Aurora have done enough to make themselves big and make them run away. That's so difficult to do when you are on white armor as well, to make teams scared of you, but it looks like Aurora didn't take any damage and they dealt enough just to force Passion back away.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really challenging, right? Harvester, that's going to be a lot of teams' rotational paths. And if you make too much noise here, you're not going to be just fighting Aurora. You'll be fighting half the lobby on their rotational patterns. And Passion sitting on 2 purples and a blue. You're right. Aurora on multiple white shields, that should have been a fight that they would have wanted to take specifically with that armor differentials. But as we kind of gather through, we get an update on where that ring is pulling. Onset in the mic telling me it could potentially be that old South frag zone where 100 T1 chance, and it has not been seen for years.
I was thinking something similar just looking at this overhead. Look at where Vexed and J-Lings have placed themselves for this kind of old World's Edge circle. It was something that Onset was alluding to at the start of the show. Actually, I think it was during rehearsals he was talking about it, that we're seeing some of these older circles that maybe haven't been as apparent in Pro League or even at playoffs, and teams are starting to notice that they're coming out of the woodwork a little bit, and because of that, they are able to make maybe better adjustments of how they want to make their rotations. Like, Vexed have moved very quickly down from Lava Siphon up to here, so they seem to have a pretty good idea of where it's going to go, and this is why Watson is so good in this meta as well. When you're able to get into one of these spots, you can create so much space. J-Lings have just dominated this area, and they're fencing everything off.
Yeah, they had a rather slow start to Split 2, but are really turning tides together. You had a listen into some of their comms, and they're sounding so much more fluid. The synergy of the team is looking to be a lot better. I mean, 2 of the members of that team being that former IG International roster, JMW, a former LAN champ. Like, so many dynamics there. And Gaskin, I mean, when we get back to cams, if J-Lings wins, I'm going to need you to teach me the logo of how it works. I know Nags was talking about it, like ready to see the J-Lings, the J and the L. I need that.
I've been trying to work it out for years, honestly, and I've just really struggled to do it. Maybe I'll be able to get it right today. But there's the circle that we were talking about. It is going to be just south of Fragment East for now. Teams like GG, who actually took Fragment East. I thought that GG were maybe going to be contesting down at Lava Siphon, but they've gone up to Fragment East and they'll be holding it for now. They'll be in a safe spot, but they could be in trouble later when they try and make their rotation. You can also see Ascend actually went north over towards like kind of survey camp area just to make sure that Bitfix weren't there, but they were also able to get that ring console nearby so they could then get the info of where they're going next. So we can see how teams are prioritizing their rotations to ensure they get as much info as they can about where this ring's going to be going.
That rotation is going to be incredibly challenging for them to cross that open area of the south of Epicenter. They will have a little bit of high to low ground, but 2R1C on your screen, bang ult out, and sitting on triple purple, Ishako is going to have to make sure you get up to health, but currently sitting 2nd overall in the day with 15 points. Little skull piercer wingman action in the hands of VJ. This could be really tantalizing, but gonna take a little bit of damage, kind of punished from overextending and peeking, not necessarily checking that left. And Yushako on the Wraith, trying to get those really advantageous LOSs by separating off just a little bit from the team. I mean, as a Wraith, I really like when it is utilized properly that way and not necessarily overextending, because you can fall back on the Q, which has that slight delay, so you've got to be careful. But Arcstar's gonna punish you. Kella Gaming starting things off strong, still a 2v3 here.
Big stick, but it is going to be the damage that follows his 2R1C, still confidently pushing into the truck, will eliminate Keller Gaming, and our first fight will actually end up with the team being wiped. So down to 19 squads. Keller Gaming, they were trying to hold on in the truck, but I find those trucks are so difficult to hold, especially when you've got a team who is just sought out to make sure they take you down. Seeing a lot of variety, though, across the compositions. This is so different to what we see in NA. NA seems to have a lot more structure when it comes to what is being picked, but it was something we were talking about in the pre-show, Tiff. People are going to be trying different things. People are going to be going back to what's comfortable for them, what they think is going to be picking up points. I think one of the biggest things we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of Valkyrie. We've got 70% of Valkyrie in the lobby at the moment. 14 teams are going to be selecting her. But then we're starting to see what Mad Maggie, Rampart, Wraith, Crypto, Watson, Bang. Like, there is so much variety in Legend selection, and that means that a lot of these fights are going to be interesting, and it's going to come down to some of those abilities that are available for you.
Well, as some of our teams get more comfortable, who they pick for their micro rotations towards the end game. In map number 1, you saw that Wraith portal come in clutch, and ever since that kind of got the buff, a lot of people have been utilizing it end game. And Yushako here on the Wraith, they could make a play to really go for VJ's banner, and it's tough because Bitfix Gaming kind of came into the mix. They wanted a third party, but currently sitting with 4 KP. This is a great start for 2R1C, and with minimal time left on that banner, it's going to be rather challenging. They might decide to just, hey, let's play our life. We don't have a lot of health. You see Hiarka there with 1 syringe, 1 med kit. You can't just keep tanking the storm like that.
It's always a tricky situation. Someone's got to make the call of should I stay or should I go, as we get to now go back towards fragment area, and the circle is going to be pulling down towards that kind of southern side of fragment that we were talking about, the 100 Thieves location that Onset was bringing up as well. It means there's going to be a lot of mountain coverage in that last circle, which naturally is going to eliminate a lot of teams as we get into kind of round 4 and then evidently round 5. So that means that positioning is going to be everything right now. Do you position yourself for the late game like the likes of J-Lings have done, for example, or now do you start thinking about, okay, well, we could potentially pick up a lot of KP if we find one of these choke points where a lot of teams are going to be rotating through?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Like, J-Lings right here sitting with 2 whites and a purple trying to maintain space in a choke point when you have a lot of teams trying to vie for that area. It would be smart, but LCDF, they want to get a piece of this action. You mentioned kind of armor checking people. As soon as you armor check that, you're gonna be like, I don't care how many Watson fences or the Jenny is, you're gonna immediately take out that interceptor pylon, eliminate some fences, and just go for broke at that point. Now, granted, Nags is an insane fragger and it's gonna put up a huge fight, but I think that they're going to be able to make this happen. But check out the gold longbow. I mean, if you really do some works on their health and take out the Jenny, this could be beautiful.
Honestly, as soon as I see Watson fences, I'm saying, where's E6? Can E6 turn up? Can K-Swinny and the rest of their boys just do something and get rid of all these gens for us with a crypto drone, please? Because then it will just allow us to get through this choke. But Lecite de France, they had a poke at J-Lings. They had to think about pushing, and we saw a lot of flesh damage, I think, that came out thanks to the Digi threat on the R9. But they didn't want to take that fight. Too risky with so many teams in the area. Still 19 squads up at the moment. You can see there the beacon information or the ring console information now for SPS. So SPS not in a bad position. This building is going to be safe for quite some time. And it looks like they're going to be more than happy to reside here and take some fights. And this is one of the areas where you can watch teams arrive and potentially pick up some KP. Here we go again.
Good shots going out. Gonna get the shield crack initially in, followed up by some arc stars. Nothing worse than absolutely getting nade spammed after you have your shields cracked, because you'll get stunned even if you get picked apart by it. But LCDF, they really want to force their way forward, find some good pieces of the choke, but Psych immediately getting punished. You hear the Nemesis just going out, and Nags is going to be the one to pick up that initial knock. So a 3v2 scenario, and they're doing a really good job. They're holding this high ground and not necessarily overextending throughout the choke point. Noise is literally 1 HP, but does have a shield, and they need to capitalize on this, because if it takes too long, a team may make their way over here to get in the action. LCDF now eliminated 18 squads remaining.
So J-Lings, they've been able to hold this choke for quite some time, but look where the circle's going. They're going to have to move, and they're going to have to move west. At least they were able to get good shields thanks to that fight, so now they're going to actually have some way of getting into the next circle, and they're going to have some freedom to do so. But it's going to be such a difficult and interesting decision they have to make. Do they try and go for just a little old waddle into the circle? Do they go for a Valkyrie ultimate to try and take them into one of these priority positions? You have to assume that there are going to be teams who are already taking some of these best spots. But in this next circle, Tiff, there's only 4 teams who actually hold a position. We have 18 squads still alive. We're going to see 14 teams now all try and make their way into this next zone. This kill feed's going to be carnage. So you better make sure you got your glasses on or whatever, just so you can be reading this, everyone at home, because it is about to start scrolling quicker than your TikTok feed.
Ooh. My TikTok feed do go crazy, to be honest, but it's going to be rather disgusting. I mean, you want to kick it off with E6 just forcing themselves in here, eliminating Morningstar, so we're just catching the end of it. And I was doing a little bit of a watch party on just looking at the main broadcast and watching the prior day matchup, the ones that I was not included on, that I did not work on. yo, let me just tell you, Morning Stars, SMS, like the ability for them to take a Valkyl, one of the players' girlfriends was like, you know, their Valkyls don't go very well, let me just tell you. And we don't get to see it thus far, but shout out to her. She was really kind, providing me some insight.
Of course, TTTV/BodyTiff if you want to catch any of those watch parties when she's there. And just a little bit of a plug. We'll get a plug in, Tiff. I think that's absolutely fine. And we can see now, you know, 28 seconds, right? This is going to be nuts, all right? I think everyone just needs to prepare themselves because you've got all these teams now going to be pushing themselves into this circle. Very little coverage, very little buildings. You've got a lot of these buildings on the south side. So you've got what? The likes of Totem, Nightmare. They're going to be holding down these buildings. They're going to be forcing any team that comes from the south to just have to take a fight or try and play with any sort of rock coverage that's available for you as well. Charge rifles are going to be huge when you are defending, but when you're pushing, it can also be okay. I don't mind a charge rifle on my squad if I'm trying to push a team because they can get that initial damage, they can back them down, and then you need the aggressive players to take that space immediately, and then the charge rifle player will join you a little bit later.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? If you have that charge rifle in your hand and you are closing the distance and you already blow through your R9 clip and you immediately try to switch weapons and you're like, oh gosh, my secondary is a charge rifle. I don't really want to be here anymore. Like, it can be rather challenging, and I love this positioning that Outplayed is utilizing in the bridge, kind of just trying to nestle up behind the bins, using the Watson fences for space, but there's a lot of other areas that you need to think about, and just like that, making sure the roof is going to be safe. Element 6 right now, CRQ going out, finding some information, and the EMP as well, going to be stunned up just a bit, but they need to close the distance, and it's kind of tough, right? The ring at their back, they're going to jump down, and this is a little messy, if I do say so myself, Gaskin.
E6 really struggling here. It's just going to be K20 who's left, and it looks like this could be the demise unless, K20 does pop off and does make sure he gets it done, but unfortunately there is going to be another team arriving with K20. What am I seeing? 2R1C get eliminated, and K20 goes huge with the car to keep things alive, but you saw that kill feed started to light up. Everyone started to get involved, but somehow E6 survived, or do they? There's always another team. Gaming Gladiators will be the team to just close things out here.
Look, I was about to say, K20 was looking to make me eat my words. He's like, oh, you said it's a little bit of a mess? Well, let me clean it up. Let me show you what's up. But you're right, GG just had to sneak on in there, walks up stealthily, and Vex Gaming, the action's not going to be ending anytime soon. Currently 12th. They went out a little too early in map number 1, so this is going to be a big engagement for them. Catwall to really cover off their backside, and Unlucky playing an anchor-esque role here, gonna shield out there, and Matafe stepping in to do some damage. Unfortunately, gonna get punished of his own and not able to restrict the passion.
Great shots, Tyler. Manages to get the shield swap as well. That's huge. Jailings, they get eliminated. Jailings tried to capitalize on the damage they put down on Matafe, but it was the angles that Vex took to ensure that they could just one clip as they crossed on these like shipping containers that are in front of them. I am really impressed, by the way, Tiff, that like we had 14 teams that somehow found residence in a very small circles. Again, there's more cracks coming out from Vex, but this next circle, there's not any room in the end. Look at the little coverage. It's all open space. All the buildings that are still available suddenly get taken out of this circle. So this is when things get hectic. This is where you need to be communicating with your team of what you're looking at, what you're going to be focusing. Are you going to be trying to isolate particular players? And this may be where you also have to accept you're just going to be getting KP, because there is not going to be many teams who are in a position to actually win this game right now.
You really have to play this as slowly as possible if you're Vex. You want to live in this space for as long as humanly possible, but Unlucky able to throw up the cat wall. This will really help cut that LOS from the entirety of Fragment. And yeah, the Bang ult coming in as well. There's a Seer ult to their left, so a lot of information. Aurora not going to survive this next movement in, and as they begin to walk forward, they're able to grab a knock. That's going to be onto Nightmare. 2 members of Nightmare down. 1 last standing. Eliminated. V2 eliminated. The chaos has begun.
This is maybe what I was expecting a little bit earlier, but Vex, they're still alive. They're still kicking. They've got 1 knock, but they might be able to get the res, but the smoke is not enough to protect them. You've got to assume digi threats are going to be there, so use the knockdown shield and maybe take the fighters at 2. Again, the car shreds through, but now the aggression is going to come from Reply Totem, who will take advantage, and there's 5 squads left, but Tiff, still teams doing damage, still teams arriving, and it seems like the last team to the party, it's Gaming Gladiators again, who makes it down to just 4 squads.
Look, we were asking so many questions when it came to gaming gladiators, and Onset even briefly mentioned it. We hadn't given them a lot of attention. Ascend still alive as well, but it's Hardeki. I have had my eyes on Hardeki for a very long time. We've seen some brief pop-up moments where he's found a lot of success, good damage going out, and this is really helping them move forward into that next zone, but they really need to make sure they clear out the right side of the space. Hardeki, you can see, is extending out from the teammates, trying to make sure there's no one over there looking for some information. Ascend has good positioning as well. Amaz, you can see, just kind of nestled there into the center, which can be dangerous, right? You overlook that, you could get an entire one clip to the side that throws your fight.
So we've got 3 teams are in the circle. There's still 1 team who's outside of the circle. Ascend, they've got a lot to do. Let's jump into a listening with Ascend and see just what's going on with the comms.
I'm going back. Wait, send the ulti. They don't have ulti for the last fight. Go back. Just play together. Just play together, boys. Come to me. They will connect. Where's the boss? They're laying on their back. We just have to do that into third party. This shit. I'm gonna give you eyes. They're there. Let him fight. Don't full fight. Just put pressure, okay? I'm gonna nade. They don't have ulti. Wait. They don't have ulti. Chill. Wait. We push from the right, okay? Here. One got knocked from the team, from the right team. Right side together. Yeah, I'm moving. Can I take the top? Low. Nice. The right. On the back. I have bullets. I need light. Okay, I'm good. Back that. I'm taking the top. Behind. Back to 2 guys behind. 2 guys. Zero, destroy. Nice. What a fucking game, bro.
Presented by WD Black, and it is Ascend who you can jump onto the comms with as we get to see them rip through the rest of the lobby in that final circle. It was such an Ascend final circle as well, I will say, Tiff. The amount of times they position themselves in circles like that where they create space, they dominate whoever joins them, and I think it's good to see Ascend back on top after a difficult match number 1. They've made things up in match number 2.
Yeah, we were always talking about Ascend being one of the most consistent teams, and you think back to Split 1, where they historically had won an enormous amount of match days, finding so much success, historically being one of the best zone teams in EMEA. So finding a match win here in match day number 5 this early, that's exactly what we want to see. And I'm sure Onset's kind of lying in wait, I'm ready to pick his brain kind of about what we just experienced. So, Onset, where are you at?
I'm here. I was summoned and I appeared. That's quite terrifying that you can do that, by the way. I think it's a power that you should use very, very sparingly. It was a crazy game, though. I think one thing that I'm very happy with is that I called zone off of that zone, which surprised me. I was like, wait. I genuinely looked at it. I was like, wait, this is a zone we haven't seen literally for years. That one. I can't remember the last time we saw an endgame there, apart from, you know, that 100 Thieves Kungano, as they were known at the time, win that they got for champs. And it was very interesting to see how quickly, like Dan mentioned, teams recognized where that zone was going to go. It wasn't like it was a surprise to them. And like we were discussing before the show started, I think a lot of teams are starting to get into that groove of like, hey, we are seeing some really old zones here, so let's start playing for them. The way that Vex set up in that choke was really good. You know, they can hold all the teams out from the south. You saw Jailings trying to do the same as well on the other choke just south of it. But execution in endgame, you know, Ascend saw where all of the business was going down, where all the teams were kind of stacking up on each other, and they just took the other side of zone. They cleared that out and they won that 3v3 engagement. And I think when you put Ascend in a 3v3 engagement, you always think back to the TSM versus Ascend moment, and that time they did not fluff their lines. They were perfect.
Look, you're gonna give me a heart attack, Onset, because every time I think back to it, we get to witness it at the top of every broadcast, and you really get to see every bit of it. And I want to give a shout out to Lufka for pulling a massive 1v3 in scrims this week, but this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen on my timeline. Not sure if either of you got to witness it.
I heard him bark afterwards. I just heard a rah! I was like, yes, that's what I want to hear after a 1v3. That's what I love.
I mean, the passion was there, Gaskin. The passion was there.
It was, and sometimes that passion can, you know, be taking you from scrims into competitive lobbies and gives you that confidence as well. Like, confidence is everything in Apex Legends. We've spoken about that so many times. When you get into those final engagements and into those 3v3s, if you are not feeling yourself as a team, if you're not feeling yourself as an individual, that you're going to be winning these engagements, maybe you back off. Maybe you take a bat instead of actually just trying to hit the one clip or trying to take that extra shot, trying to take that extra angle to support your team. And we've been alluding to it. You know, one little mistake in a lobby like this at a time like this can cost you not necessarily just points, but it could cost you a playoff spot at the end of the day. So you've got to make sure that you do utilize that confidence.
Especially with a lot of those end games turning out to be rather open compared to historically. But as we look through some of these highlights, 2R1C, Hella Gaming kind of making their way over in Climatizer, and this engagement kind of took a really long time, right? And then you see J-Lings making their way into that choke point. You would think that they would find a lot of eliminations here, and I'd be curious to see at the end of this, like, kind of how they fared on set. But you alluded to it, right? You kind of told me, you're like, that 100 Thieves Kungarna zone, they're wanting to make sure that they solidify their space now rather than later.
It's a very difficult zone to play early, unless you have one of those chokes. You have to kind of work your way through Fragment if you're coming from the north of the zone, and then you kind of expose yourself because there's only a couple of rocks that you can really play behind, which is why you saw Vex trying to prioritize these bin positions and really kind of creep their way up, wait for the rest of the lobby to do the damage and try and capitalize. And they did a pretty good job of it up until a couple of those final fights where they were just kind of outnumbered, to be honest. The rest of the lobby hadn't done their job on that side of the zone as Vex came in, and to be honest, picks up a good placement and a good amount of KP as well. But I think the story coming out of this behind Ascend is I threw a little bit of shade, I'm not gonna lie, at GG coming into this second game, because I said I haven't spoken about them much this split because there hasn't been much to speak about. And all of a sudden it was like they were watching the stream, they were like, okay, we'll show you something right now, we'll pick up 9 KP, we'll put 18 points on the board. And they are such a confidence and momentum team, Gaming Gladiators, that could be the one game that kicks them off to have like a monster day today. So I think certainly a team to watch going into the next game of World's Edge, and certainly on Stormpoint too.
Look, the passion is back. Ascend, 11 eliminations. After they cleared their back, the ability to pick up all of the eliminations. Granted, they started in Frag, they made a journey out to Epicenter, they were looking to get ring information, they made their way back over, and it paid off in dividends. But the question here is, Aurora, 1 elimination, 2 total points. J-Lings kind of operating that choke point, able to grab 4 eliminations for a total of 5 points, but E6 able to throw down and find 7. Now, granted, they didn't get a lot of placement points, but it doesn't really matter because they completely flipped how they operated. Map 1, it was all placement points. Map 2, all elimination points, Gaskin.
Yeah, I think that getting some elimination KP is so important for a squad like E6 who struggled to get it in the first game, right? Because when you have a game that you feel like you've played a good zone and you don't get much out of it, sure, you get the placement points, you start to second guess yourself a little bit. Are we too scared to take fights? Should we have taken some of the third party opportunities? Are we still going to be winning those engagements? Are we going to be rusty getting into the fights? And it seemed like E6 just said, look, this is a circle where we can take some fights. Let's make sure we get some KP. I think if you can pick up kind of 8+ points in every single game, you'll put yourself in a pretty good spot at the end of things. And maybe you'll just have one of those big chunkers as well that gives you a big old game that can suddenly put you at the top of the leaderboards.
Ooh, speaking of top of the leaderboards, let's look at the series results. Passion still reigning supreme after map 1 victory, 27 points. Ascend, though, climbing and closing that differential with 24. And as you can see, Vex Gaming, you know, they were the prior winners of the matches A versus C meetup, currently sitting in 9th place. And then you've got Foot Esports, relatively consistent, moments of brilliance, not necessarily starting off on the strongest foot that they would like. Nightmare Esports, they are switching things up. They brought in a new third, Denze no longer with Nightmare, so just trying to find their footing as well. But in a game of essentially where you mentioned it, Gaskin, you need to be extremely confident. Having to go through all of these changes, fix all your like tiny mistakes, and then still perform to the best of your abilities is really challenging.
It is really challenging. I think that there's a lot of squads who looked at that circle, made an early rotation, and then weren't able to get into the position that they wanted to, found themselves in a building, and then they looked at each other and said, okay, well, where do we go now? What happens here? Like, where are we going to be able to pick up our points? And there were so many teams who were in a similar position, and that was actually one of the most fun final circles that we've seen in quite some time, where everyone had to push in at the same zone, and you had to try and use catalyst walls. You had to try and get the dark veils down just to give you any sort of cover because there was so much open ground.
Yeah, Onset, I mean, you didn't get to be on the mic for this, so you were probably in the watching seat. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. You called this zone impeccably. I mean, maybe you should be one of those coaches out there as well.
Yeah, I get about 1 out of 20 right, and I obviously let everyone know the one that I get right, because if you're the loudest one in the room, then you sound smart. But Ascend in this fight, I think the one thing that they did really well was they didn't try and kill the rat too quickly in this final moment. I think they knew where he was, and then they were able to get into a position where he wasn't able to shoot them in the side. He was always going to do more damage to GG than he was to Ascend. That was why they focused on GG before really worrying about where that rat was going to be. The rat got dealt with by GG and Ascend combined, but Ascend having that high ground in that final moment, it's just... someone had to overextend from GG. They didn't have the height advantage. And sometimes, you know, we talk about ultimates, we talk about, you know, utility, grenades, whatever it is. Sometimes you just got to have the high ground. It is as simple as that. And that is what Ascend did. And they didn't miss their shots. So they won that game pretty comfortably.
Well, it was impressively done, and I'd be curious to see if Ascend, one of the most consistent teams in EMEA, can kind of keep the ball rolling forward now that they've got that win under their belt. But match number 3 is about to be locked and loaded, so I want to send it off to Onset Gaskin. Take it away, boys.
No messing around. I love it when we get back into the games as quickly as possible, Dan. It was a fascinating endgame, I will say, and a lot of teams, like I say, almost not surprising, but very aware of where these end zones are starting to play out as well. And I'm wondering if World's Edge is going to throw up a few more surprises for us in those end games. But for Ascend, consistency continues, Dan. A monster game from them, and we always talk about if you have one monster game in a game day on a Pro League week, then you set yourself up pretty good for a good finish towards that, the final standings when they pop up.
Yeah, I do worry about Ascend when we get to Storm Point, because that's when an actual contest will drop down. But they were able to avoid like a full-on brawl at the start of the game, which is, I think we saw two teams just overextending a little bit, looking for more loot when they shouldn't have in match number 1. And you can see how it benefited Ascend, that they were actually able to loot properly. And it was a very interesting rotation they made. I just want to touch on it briefly. They went back up and made sure they hit the ring console so they could get the info, and then they could arrive late. Had they not got that ring console information, it could have been a very different game. So it was a brave rotation from them, and we'll see whether they go for something a little bit different or maybe even similar, depending on where this zone goes. But it is going to mean Ascend, they've got the points. Kashira said it himself, they want to get first overall today, and a victory in match number 2, it certainly gets them one step closer.
No surprise to see the two teams who were involved in that end game as well, GG and Ascend, both landing at Fragment, had really good prior to where that end zone did end up shifting. And for the zone and where we're going to be going, we'll find that out in just a few moments. And one thing that I think a few teams who are landing down on the southern side of things at the moment are hoping is that maybe they're going to get a little bit of help and a little bit of love from the Apex gods. And hey, look at that. It's almost as if I have a crystal ball at the moment. I don't know why that just happened. I can tell you that it wasn't scripted, but we are going down south, Dan, and it's looking like we might be finishing towards maybe a little bit of Lava Siphon just outside.
Yeah, I can see the Twitch chat now. Just hashtag scripted is going to be in there because Onset seems to have all the notes for today. But yeah, we're going to be heading down.
Should know by now that I cursed the Pro League for so many teams for so long, but that's just not true. So you should know
so long. But that was also because you were writing the script, but just in a bad way. But it's fine. You've got better at it, and now we're in the southeast, as you'd mentioned. I think one of the biggest telltales of teams predicting zones better now was how quick Vexed moved, by the way. You know, Vexed, who like to play Edge every now and then, like to play the aggressive style, they moved so quickly to that circle from Lava Siphon in the previous. And I think that a lot of teams now are recognizing how important it is to play zone and make sure you are in one of the better positions. And with how heavy this is going to pull to the southeast, all these guys that are dropping down towards launch site, Lava Siphon, Lava City, and even Big Maud, you've got to move fast here. You've got to make sure you take advantage of the buildings and the space that's going to be available to you, because otherwise teams are going to overtake you. You've got to be the quicker team.
I'm very interested to watch Vexed game plan here as well. We've always discussed, you know, at the start of the split, we heard it. We're trying to see if that is actually coming to fruition. You know, when the zone presents itself, they want to play zone. They want to get there and try and hold this down. Well, this is the perfect example for them. You saw them looting Lava Siphon nice and quickly. They hit the geyser to get in and around zone, and they're trying to play for that end game. They're trying to get into a great position. We'll have to see how effective it is. And in the last game, like you mentioned, they did make that quick rotate and they were very effective at it. So the development of the game plan for Vex Gaming seems to be continuing, as does this contest here on the northern side of the map. It is Keller Gaming, unfortunately, who have Yuso on his back.
Yeah, Keller Gaming, who were hiding away and just one of the little RV vans a little bit earlier on in match number 2, and they were taken down, and this time it's going to be a very early fight as you've got to just try and escape and group up. It's 2R1C again who are just going to be hunting them down, and it's not a team you really want to be going up against here.
Yeah, 2R1C doing a lot of damage at the moment. They're breaking some shields. There's certainly going to be some breaking some hearts of the fans of their opponents at the moment. As Missy goes down, Hyaka picks up yet another, and I think there's one player left alive who is just scarpering away and thinking, you know what, maybe this contest wasn't the best idea in the world, but maybe he's decided he wants to come and have another look. VJX is going to get the shield swap, which is going to keep him alive, even though he's down to around 25 HP. 2R1C on the hunt at the moment to try and find this final KP.
Surely there's no way you see a 1v3 happening here. You've got to just try and escape and hope to try and play placement. Nope, not going to happen. Eliminated and Keller Gaming are out. The trouble with trying to play placement and even having that in the back of your mind is because of the amount of seers we have nowadays in the lobbies. You can't really rat out as successfully as you could back in the day. I mean, I know we've had seer for a long time, and I think that has stopped rats being able to be as successful, but it means that sometimes it is worth just trying to take the fight or trying to go for that 1v3 clutch, because if you hit it, it's more likely to get you some points rather than just trying to survive as a 1 where you're probably going to be a lackluster finish in like, what, 17th, 18th and get nothing anyway.
Yeah, I think just get her down and finish. Just get 1 KP. Just get out of the game and realize that contesting still is a risky business, and that's exactly what one team finds out yet again. And we're going to take a look at Dome, though. This is where we believe the zone is going to be pulling from a little bit of beacon information that we have, and Vex Gaming, you can see right deep inside of that zone. Again, keeping our eyes on how that does play. Let's see France. They're going to be inside of Lava City, on the most southern building that we do have in Lava City. They're going to have to work their way uphill towards the end game, but before they do that, they've got SMS inside of the building causing some problems for them.
Lots of smokes down. Digi-threat at least available for aimbot.
Top for just the next few moments or so. Let's see France taking their time at the moment just to reset. And it's always a good idea. Sometimes when you get that first knock and you do a little bit more damage, you have to take the time just to pop the shield cells, not get too carried away with things, thinking, oh, he's weak, I can finish this. And before you know it, the 3v2 advantage becomes a 2v2 and all of a sudden you're panicking. But this is where all the teams are setting up at the moment, Dan. Inside of Dome, you can see Jailings. They've made a quick rotation once again. And one thing I have been very impressed with is how quick Jailings have found somewhere to play in these games. We saw the first game over by Trials. Where were Jailings? They were inside of Trials, by the way. Morningstars and Passion both eliminated on their way forward. But they also, depending on where that zone is going, even if it's far, like I mentioned, the Trial zone, they've got into a good priority spot, and they've recognized their quickest way and the most effective way they've had success in the past is getting into those good positions.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Jailings previously too were on Invictus, who were one of the best World's Edge teams that we had at Split 1 playoffs when we looked at their ability to convert top 10s into victories when they actually get into zone, when they are able to predict it. They are so good as Aurora keep re-peeking this one. Ranch is maybe biting off more than he could chew, but will just about escape thanks to the ability to just slide back on down to Vault. First 3 games so far on set is we've had pretty predictable zones. Say that 3 times over. So we're seeing a lot of early movers. We're not seeing as many early fights happening, and we're seeing a lot of congestion in these final circles. So those who are arriving late are going to be finding it very difficult to get in.
Well, Aurora, good news for them. I always talk about how it's funny how one team fight can completely change your fortunes in a day. Well, they've had that team fight and they have 3 KP. Aurora ran over someone on their way towards this zone, and they've got a pretty good place to hold down. The difficulty for them is escaping this vault tunnel when we do see this zone shift. On the flip side of that, if we do see a bit of a funky zone shift and we see it maybe pulled towards somewhere a little bit unpredictable, maybe back out towards Lava Siphon, they have options to play with here. So Aurora are going to be defending this with their lives, but I mentioned one team fight can change things for Aurora. Maybe this is the game where all of a sudden they come to life.
And I think everyone would love to see it. Well, maybe not everyone. Other teams in the lobby don't want to see it, but fans would want to see it, so that we can have the Aurora of old back. But they're unfortunately going through a new design function, right? We're going to have to see how Sunset is going to fit in. And until we start to see more engagements happen, like, we're going to be questioning, are they going to ever be as good as the previous Aurora? As all the teams that have already rotated up towards Dome, or down towards Dome, should I say, they're just going to be kind of popping off at one another, maybe trying to hit a few shots here or there to level up those Evo shields, but we're not going to see engagements happen right now. The engagements are only going to be forced when teams arrive a little bit later. Just looking across compositions as well, Mark, it's stabilized a little bit in match number 3 here. It's Valk, Seer, Catalyst for the most part. There's a few changes here or there. You've got 5 Bangs, 4 Watsons, a few Cryptos, but we are still seeing that main Valkyrie, Seer, Catalyst being ever prevalent here in these lobbies.
One thing to note here for Vex Gaming as well is keeping an eye on the weaponry and seeing if they're going to have a good enough armory, so to speak, in order to level up those Evo shields. You saw the Scout from Atafe, you saw the Charge Rifle as well. It's going to be perfect for them to do so. So one of the questions always when you're looking at a zone team is, are they going to be able to deal out the damage to be effective when their end zone does start to close and some of those teams have forced their way in, taking fights and leveled up those Evos are going to be at least equal or at least in a position where you can do damage and trade out some kills. And it looks like if Vex can find some angles, which is difficult to do inside a dome just due to the fact that it's quite a flat POV, there's not a lot of elevation to play with, then they should be able to at least level up all of these Evo shields to purple. As we see on map overhead though, you see everyone making their way towards dome through launch site. A little bit of a fight going down on the just the southern side of launch site as well on some of those platforms. Ascend kind of waiting in the wings, waiting for their moment. Aurora, we already noticed they were holding down that vault choke, and just to the north of them, holding outside between the dome and that vault choke is going to be GG, and that position is one of the stronger to hold down towards that end game. You've got that huge God Rock to play from as well that Hardeki is calling home right now.
Yeah, I also like J-Link's position. Vexed in a fantastic spot. You can say the same for Totem and Nightmare. Even Foot playing the far south side of the eggshells are going to be in an okay spot depending on where that circle goes. The 3 teams that are outside of this first circle, though, that's where I'm going to be keeping an eye on the map overhead. Like, how do they rotate in? Do they go for the kind of balls to the wall play of just trying to get the skyward dive, sending yourself in, and hoping you can take some sort of playable areas? We've seen many a times in ALGS Pro League that doesn't work, but you might just be able to take that risk and hope it does. But let's see the France still posturing up against the team opposite in the building. Again, it's just info gathering, it's trying to level up Evo shields, but usually nothing happens. But when you see a Wraith suddenly portaling, you might get a little bit interested in this one.
Few shots coming in from the car here from Yulu. It's not going to do the damage to really extend the invitation to push off the back of it, but I kind of love this. He's taking the height, he's making sure they control as much of this building as they can. Got to be careful, of course, not to get shot in the back from the teams which are above you, but I'm pretty sure this is a solo player, and even though the damage was done, let's see, the France have got to be extremely careful here and make sure that the Wraith doesn't cause too many problems. It's not just a solo though, but Aimbot doesn't care. Aimbot by name, Aimbot by nature, as 2 R1C are eliminated. It was a very, very tough rotation for them right from the northern POI that they drop at, but drop they do, and they will drop out of this lobby as we have 16 squads now remaining.
Wow, Lil Max just about surviving. M47, excuse me, just about surviving. V2 are the team that are trying to advance on this one. No ultimate to play with afterwards, so you've got to take advantage of it right now as Nubicide will hit the shots. And that Mozambique can do a little bit of damage, even if it's from distance, it would seem.
It does indeed. You get them hammer points back, and you certainly do be shredding, especially from a bit of distance. We know that from some arenas games that we casted in the past. That certainly, maybe it's got a bit more range than you think it does sometimes. Here goes K Swinney, though. He's trying to just lay down a little bit of damage for his teammates to take advantage of. And E6, momentum certainly on their side. They pick up the kills that they need onto V2. We have 15 squads remaining. 1 minute and 44 seconds for them to reset now, but they have so much work still to do down. They're only in Lava Siphon, and they've got 15 squads still ahead of them before they get to zone.
Yeah, I mean, E6 were one of the teams who had to travel the furthest, and they did take their time before making their initial rotation, but at least they've won the first couple of engagements, right? They've been able to at least pick up the KP. Now they can make sure they get the resources. They can think about their plan of action. They do have time to do so. It's 1 minute 20 still on the clock, so they can discuss how they want to try and play through, but you're right, they've got all these teams that are going to be in front of them that would have taken positions. This is where, though, the crypto drone comes into your favor. You can not only get information, but you can also hit one of these beacons, find out where the empty spots were. You're going to see where the players currently reside. Where is your pathing going to be? And you can kind of just draw it in your head once you see where the teams are going to be holding.
Well, decisions being made now by E6. They don't have the ability to take the skyward dive. No Valkyrie in this composition. So it's going to have to be more of a bulldozer approach, I would describe it as, from E6, which I think is a very good way to describe how K Swinney and co play, and whatever team that K Swinney does find himself on. He likes to take the fights, likes to get involved, but at the moment he's just taking damage, and this is the difficulty that we're talking about. They only have 27 seconds left. They've got so many teams in front of them, and they're just got to try and thread the needle, so to speak, as well. And Ascend down on that low ground, they're going to have to do something similar, even though they might have that geyser to get them out of a bit of trouble.
I think from the information they got from the survey beacon, they would have seen there's a team at Vault and there's a team at the more northern building of launch site. There is a gap for them to break through where a replicator currently is on the map. You can see the replicator that I'm talking about just on the northwest side of the circle in the top left-hand side of your screen. That's maybe where they're going to aim for, but it is not going to be easy because SAF are going to be looking at them, Ascend are going to be looking at them, and Aurora also. So Element 6 are going to have to do the unthinkable here. Maybe they just need to play the montage music and hope for the best.
They take to the low ground for now, but it's still not going to be safe. You can see they might be able to stabilize, but a Graceful goes down on the cross, and this is the difficulty, right? When everyone is rotating as quickly as possible to a predictable zone, sometimes there's just no way to get in, but a gold knockdown certainly going to help. They can get him back onto his feet with a little bit of health, unless he gets cancelled at the last second, and that is the worst time to see that cancel, because now the zone is chasing at your back. There's teams in front of you, and E6, oh, this is a tough old route to take uphill.
I think the Observer's being quite cruel today to watch this journey, but at the same time, SAF, who did drop to take them down, are also going to be punished because of it. Lucky will be the last remaining player. K-Swinny's still alive for now, eventually gets knocked, and somehow E6 still doing a job here. The unthinkable maybe becomes a possibility. Game of Drones will now sweep in to get the final bits of SAF, but E6, they're still alive.
Ascend trying to force their way in as well. You saw Lufka get the finish onto K-Swinny as well. You can see the Rampage slowly finding its way back into the meta as well. He charged that thing up just before a fight. It still packs a punch. As we get a little look of the land. Look at how Ascend have managed to navigate that, though, Dan. I mean, that's the difference, right? Ascend and E6 were in very similar positions and had very similar decisions to make on how they wanted to path their way towards this zone. I think one difference might be the fact that Ascend have a Kraber to work with, as we see E6 finally being eliminated. But still, just making the calls at the right time to, as I mentioned, thread that needle, find a way through towards that zone. Aurora at the backs at the moment, who still have control of that vault tunnel, but with GG holding down the other side of it, I kind of think they wanted to try and mirror what Ascend are doing, but have been forced back now.
I mean, I'd be quaking in my boots if I was the likes of Game of Drones and Aurora, who were close to Ascend, because all it takes is one of those Kraber shots to pop your shields, and then suddenly that could be Ascend jumping on top of you. We're going to see information just gathered here by Kashira on that crypto, as now Aurora will be making their way. They went through Vault instead of facing against Ascend, which was probably the wise idea as soon as they heard that Kraber shot, but they've still got to make a very big journey, a treacherous one, across open land here, and they're taking so much damage in only 10 seconds before this circle comes in.
Yeah, this is GG. They've been holding down this spot for quite some time. Now, GG have to move as well, which is what Aurora are trying to force the fight. They're saying, hey, you hold us out here, you're holding yourself out, so you might as well try and rotate and give us a bit of space to play with if you want to be involved in this end game. The smokes coming in from ranches are certainly going to help with that, and they're trying to make a wide left wrap here. Jailing's still in the vicinity, as well as Le Site de France, I believe, on that side of the dome shell, and Aurora have spotted them out. Now, previous seasons, we might see Aurora run through these two teams, but it's looking a little bit tougher for them now as they use that Catalyst wall to get into zone.
Yeah, Dark Veil is going to be very important for a lot of these teams, but look how far they've made it, but they still have to go through Dome where teams are already in these buildings, so you've got to either go on top of them, go down below them. You can't really go through them, and Aurora have already lost one on their journey, as at least Cleve's hitting the shots, but you can see in the kill feed, everyone's starting to lose players as they make their way into this zone.
Game of Drones eliminated as well, down to just 10 squads now, and that zone pull was the difference maker for all of these teams. You can see that everyone's trying to have a little bit of a scrap at the moment. A lot of utility being used. You saw the exhibit going down from a Seer. Fight maybe just being forced away. As Ascend still, Dan, it's so fascinating to watch the way that they're navigating their way through to this zone. If Ascend win this game from here, it would be one of the performances of the season from me. From the positions they've been in to where they find themselves, it would be something special, but now it's all up to Postkill, who, speaking of something special, is going to have to pull off something magical himself.
Yeah, now it really would be one of the most impressive victories if Postkill is able to somehow do it. You've just got to try and survive, though, as Postkill. Get into the top 5, secure those extra placement points, and It would be nice if you could tuck yourself there, but there's a lot of lava, Sunshine, so you're going to have to make sure you just try and find a little different area. But unfortunately, Outplayed get taken down. There was a rat still surviving. Gaming Gladiators also finding some KP. 7 squads remaining. Vexed also taking this fight.
Aurora eliminated as well, by the way, while all of that was going down. So another quiet game, 3 quiet games for Aurora as we head towards Storm Point after this conclusion of World's Edge. But Vex Gaming, they've been here for quite some time. They will be safe inside of this next zone as well. They've got a couple of KP and they're in the top 7 here, Dan. And I think they're proving the point here. These boys know how to play zone. They just got to execute. Now they're in that top 7. There's space to play with, but can they make the right calls at the right moment in this endgame?
Look where Robin's squad is as well. The southern side of the shell, where I spoke about earlier, they've been able to hold that down for quite some time and just be able to survive. And they can hug the west side of this shell and should be able to stay alive at least the top 5. But then you've got to be able to at least do the damage on the teams that are going to be arriving. Gaming Gladiators is going to be their first fight. And actually, it looks like that fight is already happening on the western side of this dome area. But all the teams that are in the dome, at least they can kind of hold residence in these buildings that are going to stay within this next zone for now.
Well, Tyler's taking a little bit of an off angle here for Vexian. If maybe they can pull off a few angles to get some KP down. It is going to be pulling towards that rock as well. Got to talk about GG as well. Gaming Gladiators, they've had another really, really solid game. Ascend's still alive, by the way. Post kill, I said he has to do something special. Well, maybe he can. He's going to find a couple of kills. Nightmare Esports, forget about post kill, but you can't let that happen. GG go down as well. As all of a sudden, with 4 squads remaining, post kill is still in this game and still has that Kraber.
I mean, I've made the mistake of calling something impossible to happen before, right? It's, you know, post-kill in this position, there is no way he should even be able to get into the top 5, really. But he's been able to do that. He's been able to do the first step of the journey. Now you want to aim for top 3. Placement points is everything. And as long as you can avoid the sight lines of some of these guys that are arriving from the western side, Robin and the rest, then you might be able to just pick apart the pieces once damage has been done. But for Vex, they're going to hold the height on this rock that you were talking about. As for Totem, they're going to hold the building just next to where post-kill is. And they've been able to kind of fortify that building for the longest of times. But when they're eventually forced out of it, it's about where they go and how they play that.
I mean, Vex certainly in position to win this game. There's no doubt about that. I think Totem have got to leave this building. There's only one way for them to leave. Postkill's going to let him do that and hope that he can pick up maybe a few placement points in KP as they leave. On the outside, you can see SMS. They're going to have to be exposed in a few moments' time. But how are the ultimates looking? What's the utility looking like? Are there some grenades to be thrown onto Vex, who are going to have to expose themselves for just a few moments here as they have to take that high ground as the zone starts to close behind them? Really anxious moments for Vex. They will expose themselves to SMS and Totem inside of that building. Now they make their move.
It's identical compositions for all of the 3 teams, except, of course, for Postkill, who is on that Watson. It's going to be the Seer, Cat, Valkyrie. So we're going to see all the catalysts come into play. All the Dark Veil is going to be important. All of the circle sightlines are now going to be taken away from each other. And this is where I say, Catalyst players, this is when your bread and butter needs to be going down. You need to be making sure you're giving all of that information to the rest of the squad, because you can freely pass through those Dark Veils.
Nades being thrown in the sky, not quite damaging SPS in the way they would have wanted. Another catalyst wall goes down as Vex, you saw one player tried to swing out a little bit and do some damage. Postkill's still alive, by the way. He's found a cheeky little corner to call his own. Totem make their move towards zone. Vex now have to drop as well. As SPS now try and move forward. Ascend are eliminated. It won't be magic from post-kill. Reply Totem eliminated. Is now a 3v3 between Vexed and SPS, but it might not be a 3v3. It's going to be a W instead, as SPS from the edge of the dome will close out game number 3.
They took the southern side of those eggshells very early on, and because of it, they were able to cut off the sight lines. They were able to enter the fight pretty much last there, and it was actually Postkill who really annoyed Vexed. He was able to get a knock onto one of the Vex players as the solo rat, and I think Vex will be a little bit peed off about that one, but fair enough to Ascend, right? It was looking like it was all doom and gloom when they were in 8th, and then somehow they not only get into the top 4, but also KP alongside it, so shout out for Postkill, but it's all about SPS getting that victory done.
Yeah, big result for SPS that, but I was fascinated by the way that Ascend, like I mentioned in that middle game, managed to navigate the traffic, because there was 15, 16 teams still alive where they were trying to work their way uphill towards Dome, and that rotation is one of the toughest on World's Edge, right? When you're going uphill, because there's so little cover to play with. You've got that little trench that they kind of managed to just about sneak into with teams surrounding them. And I think they were kind of helped by everyone else taking the fights around them, where they were kind of like, don't mind us, just going to wander in through here, boys. Don't worry about it. I think also having the Kraber and firing a couple of shots certainly kind of warns the lobby that you cannot poke Ascend in that position.
Well, I mean, Tiff was watching and waiting in the wings, and I'm sure she was enjoying what Postkill was doing as well. Tiff, I mean, Ascend managed to get into the top 4, but SPS, the positioning, they were able to get the victory because of it.
Yeah, very, very interesting, if I might add. Postkill just kind of ratting away as a Watson and just having some stellar moments. There's nothing more exciting than an aggressive Watson just surviving as long as they possibly can. But you're right, those dome zones can be incredibly interesting. And I think, Onset, you brought up a really good point. It's rather challenging to get in there. And as I was seeing Aurora make their rotation, obviously they lost out on Sunset and Nazir, as we have the highlights kind of rolling, I think that could be one of the things that Aurora has technically been struggling with. It's getting to that next zone, finding their way in and fighting forward. GG did impeccable by moving away.
I think one thing that was a standout for Aurora, and we keep going back to it, right, is they were one of the first teams who really kind of champion Catalyst and how they can use that legend to isolate a fight on edge. Now that there's multiple Catalysts in the area, it becomes more difficult because they see the Dark Veil go down, and Exhibit can follow from your opposing team. You can see another team block you off on your rotation with a Dark Veil of their own, and all of a sudden finding a 3v3 on edge of zone becomes much, much more difficult to do. And the longer that you leave it, the more it forces your hand into a position where your opponent sometimes has a better position to take this 3v3 from. You saw GG held them out for as long as they could before they had to continue their rotation. That slowed everything down. That forced them to fight. Other teams then had a line of sight onto them as they tried to force their way into zone. It's so tough, and it really highlights, you know, how difficult it actually is to navigate towards these end games if you don't have a zone that goes your way with the talent that we have in these lobbies. But I've got to say, the Dark Veils in that end game were very interesting to actually kind of look at, because before Catalyst became meta and everyone was using that Dark Veil to get out of buildings, I mean, Reply Totem are dead. They have one door to leave from. There's no way that they can shroud themselves for long enough to leave that building. Soon as the Dark Veil goes down, Vex go from favorites to what do? We cannot see what's going on. So it's just fascinating to see how that Dark Veil can influence an endgame.
There were 3 total Dark Veils at one point in that endgame scenario. And you think back to APAC North and their World's Edge games, they were utilizing the Dark Veils to maybe mid-game for their rotations. They were essentially taking Valkolts behind the wall. And a lot of their endgames didn't really have Dark Veils. There was a lot of Bangalore standing out with the smoke. Now, Gaskin, I kind of want to pose a question to you, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. Because back when it was like the Gibby bubble meta and like everyone was bubble fighting, it was who you could force to use their Gibby bubble first. Do you think that's kind of happening here with the Dark Veil with Catalyst?
Yeah, you've got to be prepared to paint a picture when you are the Catalyst, right? You've got to be thinking about where other Dark Veils are going to go, because the last thing you want to do is put your Dark Veil down at the same time as someone else and he goes in exactly the same position and you're not able to get the vision and the advantage because of it. Sometimes you want theirs to go down first, because then you can assess what they are cutting off, and then you can also cut off a portion of the map to your advantage. And if you are the Catalyst, as I've been alluding to in the commentary, you can be the one to pass through that Dark Veil first. Give the freedom to your team to say, okay, we can push through. You can take the vision impairment just for now. I've given us the freedom to just hold this area for 10 seconds or whatever whilst the vision's impaired. And then suddenly you have the best position in the circle. So yeah, it can be sometimes about getting it down last, because then also when theirs go down, yours is the last one up. And then you're just sitting pretty, waiting for them to come through or waiting for it to drop. And you should win the game. It sounds simple. It's not that simple, but yeah, you're right. I think there is an element of being last sometimes is better.
I completely agree. And you're right. Congratulations to SPS for taking the map 3 victory. But as much as I love hearing from you, Onset and Gaskin, there is someone else that I would love to pick their brain. So hi, Yuki, the 1v1 legend himself, the Rampart enjoyer, the university student. Bro, you are an absolute legend. And I could sit here and hype you up all day. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much, Onset, Gaskin.
Now, I've got some questions for you, and we are going to take a look at the zone eventually, but I want to kick it off. I'm just really curious. First off, Rampart, how are you enjoying it? Do you enjoy Sheilaing people down? Does that like bring you joy?
Absolutely. I believe playing Sheila when Bitflix Gaming does play her as well. However, it has a different feeling when you're one of the few teams who play a legend, and you can kind of really showcase their abilities and how they can be incorporated into ranked, into competitive.
Definitely into competitive as well. And thank you so much for noting the ranked portion. I will say that I've seen a lot more Ramparts
Oh,
in my
no.
ranked lobbies, and I'm always like, dang it, Yuki, but it's all your fault. No, but for real, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what would be the teams that you are most impressed with thus far in Split 2.
I would probably say, and obviously probably Fire Beavers and Ascend. I believe we expected them to do quite well, and they've definitely proved that they can do well, and they have shown consistency. Ascend, we kind of, well, like today, we kind of always see them somewhere in the end. If it's not all three, it's always one of them. You know, post kill lurking around, end zone at the very end there in Dome. They're just always around. You know, Ascend. So props to Ascend and Fire Beavers for doing really well. And Vexed, seeing a lot more of Vexed as well. Vexed is a little bit strange to me. I'm not particularly a big fan of them. However, in the most unbiased opinion, they are doing very well. And however, they're very. I like to think of them as inconsistent, but unintentionally, like really good. I'm not too sure. I don't know. They're like good and bad at the same time, but they're doing really well as well. Admittedly.
I need to jump in now, Tiff, because Yuki's a really nice guy normally, but he's just given us something there. He said that he doesn't like. Talk to me a little bit more about it. Like, let's talk about this. Why's your opinion like that on Vexed? Is it because you thought they were playing a style that fitted EMEA in Split 1, and then they kind of got a little bit exposed at LAN, and you maybe saw that, or what? Tell us a little bit more about that opinion.
Yeah, so I believe Vex in general are a very good team. Definitely. And they have gotten results in Split 1 to prove it. However, I think their inconsistency makes them unpredictable. And that's like, going back to what I was saying, it's unintentionally unpredictable. So good teams can't really predict how they play. They sometimes just pop off, and they sometimes just like die early. It's very rare to see them do average games. That's why they're more of like a loose cannon for me anyway, because it's very hard to predict how they play and what they do.
I mean, we've definitely seen it across the board. I mean, I think we said similar things at LAN, that Vex weren't able to find the success they did in the season, but we can't argue with results right now. But we also can't argue with your results. I mean, you guys have been performing excellently in the games and the rounds that you've been playing in. What's the general feelings about meta? We always talk about, we've got this new Cat, Seer Valk meta. You guys obviously playing Rampart, doing something a little bit different. Do you think that it is beneficial to you guys with how the meta has gone? Has there been any struggles in terms of practice to make sure you get used to it?
I'd say it took us a very short time to get used to Rampart. There was a very quick learning curve that I had to overcome. Rampart certainly counters Catalyst, and Catalyst certainly counters Catalyst as well. However, being Alliance, we like to, do funky things, and I think Rampart's working really well right now. However, it might not be what we're going to continue to run. So stay tuned for that.
Okay.
I tell you what, he's given us the spiciest interview we've ever had it, and you're doing it in a way that keeps us watching as well. This is genius. I like this. This is good.
Look, my man over here is so mysterious playing Rampart, but that's not what we'll stay on. But I'd be curious, thank you for all of that, but I want to have you kind of walk us through that final zone. You had already alluded to post-kill kind of dancing around on the Watson there in Dome, but hearing it from your perspective and someone who's completely well-established and an absolute legend, it's always nice to hear.
Yeah, so this end zone is very interesting. We've seen 3 different end zones now on opposite sides of the maps. I believe Vexed have the best position here because the house has to move last second. However, Vexed was griefed by postkill. I believe postkill knocked one of Vexed, which kind of messed things up for them. But Vex played it completely perfect. They had 2 guys on high ground looking over unlucky close. And yeah, it was just unfortunate postkill managed to grief on them. Otherwise, I believe Vex should have taken that win. SPS did a great job coming in last second, as you should. And they completely played it perfect. SPS played it perfect in the given the position that they were in.
Ooh, interesting. And I'd be curious to hear, where would you on Alliance have positioned yourself in an end game circle like that? Which one would you have gone for?
So we would have been in SPS's position, I believe, probably somewhere on the outside of the egg of the dome, it'd be very unlikely for us to get a building because we're going to be rotating. We like to play edge and we like to come in on the edges. So I think we would have been in a similar position as SPF and SBS, and it might have been a similar result as well if post skill griefed the other teams for us as well.
Everyone needs a post skill in their life in the final circle. That's what I've learned.
Unless you're vexed. That's pretty much it.
Very true. And granted, I guess I have to go find a post skill for my life just so I can get through ranked. I have to diverge through all of the ramparts thanks to Yuki. But honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the show and speaking with you. You are just, I'm a fan. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a fan. You're impressive. If I'm not mistaken, you're almost done with university. Is that the case? You're also a full-time university student?
Yes, almost done.
End for you?
Almost done. And in 2 months. In 2 months, I would be graduated. Yeah.
We think about how terrifying that's going to be, by the way. Yuki's like just one of the best players in the world right now, while he's like full-time education, doing a degree. Like when he's got more time. It's unfair, Yuki. I'm going to be honest with you.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm very excited.
I mean, I'm just going to keep asking myself, what's it like to be so talented? What's it like to be Yuki? But I mean, any last words? You want to thank anyone in particular before we kind of send you off here?
I just want to thank my teammates for making me who I am today, and thank you to our sponsors as well. Alliance represent, of course. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tiff, Onset, and Gaskin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. What a legend, bro. Let me just tell you, everyone needs a post skill in their life. What about everyone wants a Yuki in their life?
This is a different Yuki as well. He's starting to become himself, right? This man knows now what he's doing in these interviews. He's given us a little bit of drama, a little bit of spice, a little bit of entertainment, but also, of course, always well-spoken as well. And very excited to see the future of him and Alliance. I think that what they're doing with Legend composition, like getting the Rampart underway, like it just makes everything good to watch.
Well, now I'm curious. I'm curious to see where they're going.
Apologize to him, but like very quick. It's like he gave me like one suggestion. Like he didn't even say anything bad about Vex, and I was like, so you don't like Vex then? And he was like, no, Vex are a good team. So I feel like I should apologize very quickly for that, Yuki. I'm sorry to throw you under the bus, but I'd do it again. Won't lie, I'd do it again.
Onset, the devil on your shoulder that everyone needs. He wants the true reactions, the true feelings. But let's go ahead and take a look at the series results and see. You know, SPS's climb to the top, Ascend reigning supreme there with 39 points, but that victory in map number 3 put them 30 points. So SPS now in second, but Gaming Gladiators, Onset, I'm coming back to you.
Hey, look, I told you I've got the script for today, all right? And it seems to be coming true. I was like, hey, maybe GG. Haven't spoken about much this season. Haven't really deserved to. And ever since then, of course, they've popped up. And they have been popping off as well. In those end games every single time, winning the 3v3s that we know they do. And it just looks like the GG of old. I don't know what's changed. Maybe it's just, I can't put my finger on it right now because we always expect this team to be there or thereabouts. And they just haven't been... You know, they've been off the boil for quite some time now, but maybe this is the week. Maybe this is where they turn things around. Third place right now, and I tell you what, a win in this week, this match day, you know, it'd be dangerous for the rest of the teams who are competing towards the latter ends of this split.
Look, it's Hardeki. That's the word. That's the answer. It's Hardeki. Man is going absolutely off. I cannot believe it. But hey, maybe you at home in chat, you're inspired by what you're seeing on the screen. Have your hands at the Challenger Circuit. It just underway. I watched the finals will be tomorrow for this past weekends, and I've been watching a lot of the action. But if you want to get into it, make sure that you look for that next day, April 22nd, Challenger Circuit number 2. Registration closes April 19th. So get a team, get in there, and at least try your hand. Now, granted, there's a couple rounds before you can make it to the semifinals, the quarterfinals, and then the finals on the third day, but you can really learn a lot by placing yourself in the competitive nature. Heck, I've even thought about potentially getting a squad together, maybe find my own version of a post kill and just kind of grind out Challenger Circuit if I'm not here on the broadcast, but make sure you check it out. Visit battlefy.com/ALGS for more information, guys. I mean, Onset, would you squad up with me?
We'd have to run some games, Tiff. We'd have to run some games. I'm a tough man to impress these days. If you are one of these players, Dan's just like, yeah, he is. I'm vicious. That's what I can say. We must. The death ball is an inherent part of the way that I play this game. And if you're not with it, then I'm sure you would be though. I'm sure you'd be part of the death ball. And we'd do you know what? We'd win Pro League. Forget about it. So why we're on the broadcast? We'd ruin it for everyone else.
I'm not feeling very confident with what you said there. Like, I feel like I'm gonna have to survive the tryouts. Gaskin's over there shaking his head. He's like, nah, Tiffy, you're not gonna survive.
I've been through the tryouts, I passed, and then I'm a second too late on a push, and then suddenly I've got Mark down my ear telling me I'm doing something wrong. But, you know, we love him for it because we still get the dubs, and he still makes the zone calls.
To perfection. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Look,
it's never my fault when we die.
It's so tough. All right, Gaskin, I'm gonna have to send you away. Enjoy your break. I'm taking onset. I'm gonna work on my trial here. Based off the next match, map number 4, as we start off on Storm Point, will determine if onset will play video games with me or not. Let me just tell you that much.
Well, I'm going to play video games with you, Tiff. Don't worry. It's 100% going to happen. We'll get some games. I'll tell you what, we'll get some games in tomorrow. Let's do that. Let's do that. Or even between... Oh, no, we can't do it between broadcasts. We haven't got the time. But we will definitely get some games in this week. But I think we should turn the attention away from our, I would say, above average ranked performances into map number 4 and the fact that we are switching over to Storm Point, because Storm Point... It's the wonderful thing about how the ALGS is structured now is just as we start to see some patterns emerge, and then we have the change of maps and everything changes. Some teams who have had a lot of success on World's Edge and got those points on the board have struggled so far when we see that map flip. I'm really interested to see if GG can continue their momentum though, because I've mentioned how they are a team who can catch fire. If they can do that here on Storm Point, which they've been a little bit slow on so far this season, then it could be a very, very dangerous sign for the lobby.
Ooh, you're not lying. E6 kind of center of zone there, dropping in Cascade. But this is that moment that we were talking about with Ascend and Bitfix Gaming. Turn your attention over to Barometer. Now, granted, will Bitfix Gaming essentially pursue Ascend in that POI, or will they split it rather half and half? Bitfix Gaming, they have the survey beacon information, so that could be beneficial to them, but it almost seems as if Kashera and co are just making their way north. They're like, nah, we don't want to waste our time with this. We have a match day to win.
I think Ascend is so good, and Kashera studies zone so much as well. He's probably got a pretty good indication of where this is going to be going. It wouldn't surprise me to see Ascend heading over towards Cascade Falls pretty early here, or maybe even a little bit more north towards the wall, even though it doesn't look like it's going to pull maybe quite that far up, but that wouldn't surprise me. Bitfix Gaming, they're going to obviously have the beacon information, and they're going to be able to get that confirmed. And if Ascend are smart about this as well, they can just kind of let Bitfix do their thing, slowly edge their way up the map and just track where they go, or maybe hit a map room or on their way up towards Cascade Falls. So it's a couple of decisions for Ascend to make, but again, first zone for them usually has enough information to get a pretty good idea on where that zone's going to be going.
I think what's really telling here is E6 landing in Cascade had the ring console information, and they've already went up a little bit further north. Now, you were talking about there, like, I'm not sure how far north this zone will pull, but the fact that teams are already making their way, J-Ling's kind of coming up just from the left of Cascade, bring it all the way around. So as the teams begin their rotations, getting those IMC armories in, we typically see a large amount of contention here. And Kella Gaming, right? They had that 50-50 contest in Climatizer on World's Edge, want to actually get to play the game today. So now they're just going to spawn on top of this IMC armory.
I always feel this isn't a good idea. I've got to say, like, if you hear a team inside of armory, you're like, oh, cool, yeah, great, we can jump on this, we know they're there, but it's not the easiest fight to take. The people can hit the jets quite quickly out of there, take that grav lift before you can get any damage. And even if you do find yourself taking a fight, just think about what the team inside the armory is doing, right? They're getting all the attachments, they're getting all the loot, they're leveling up. Like, they're a very difficult fight to take. And when you've got 3 blue armors, it can be a very, very tough situation, even though, you know, if you play a little bit ranked, you might sit on top of one of these armories thinking you can take that fight. I think it's one of those kind of, like, it misguides you a little bit, thinking you have good angles on the team, and before you know it, you can see yourself getting picked.
It's a little bit of an ego chow, if I might add. You're feeling a little more confident when maybe you probably shouldn't take that fight. But Element 6 doing a little bit of drone work here from K-Swinney. They're the team that rotated out of Cascade post-ring console information. And now sitting up here, they have access to a survey beacon nearby in the vicinity. But the issue with that is you can only hit a survey beacon once, and should you do it on rotation, I feel like you need to save them for the perfect timed areas.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to work your way in from edge, it's always a good idea to get the lay of the land, see if there's a couple of isolated teams that you might be able to fight on edge and really level your way up. And as we speak of leveling up, we might be seeing a couple of teams looking to throw down as the battle of the armory, which is, let's be honest, elongated at this point, is still continuing. Keller Gaming They're going to have to take their time here and might have to be forced down to the low ground. This is something maybe they didn't expect, which is the Seer ultimate going down, which is the Bangalore Rolling Thunder going down to clear them off of the height, and Missy's taking damage themselves. Gadam's going to try and respond, and this is the problem that I mentioned, right? It seems like a good idea until one of you gets knocked, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, why have we spent so much time here?
It's just rather fortuitous, right? You use all of your abilities, everyone burns through their ults, and it comes down to it. You haven't really made any progress into this fight, and any fight that takes maybe longer than 25 to 30 seconds, it's just not worth it. And LCDF, they're gonna hop into the portal, close the distance, and bring the action to them, and ooh, a little thermite for the door action.
I think Les de France are a little bit, how we would say, feel disrespected. Having that team just sit on top of them for so long. You can tell that by just taking the portal. You take the portal, you're like, how dare you come back here, Keller Gaming. And that's exactly why you don't fight the Armory team who's inside it unless there's multiple teams around who can maybe help you out and you've got a couple of good angles as they leave, because it's just so tough to do. I mean, you were looking at Les de France, the R99 gold mag, all the attachments you could want. With 3 blue shields, it's a tough fight full stop. And I think that's you talk about the learning process of going through the Challenger Series, right? Well, that's something you have to learn very quickly in Pro League, is that you can't really rely on that being a good success rate in that fight.
Well, that's true. I mean, Kelly Gaming is one of those teams that came in through the Split 2 qualifiers. So I feel as if you take a season in Pro League to kind of learn, get those contests out, maybe learn those rotations, talk about battles. Don't perch on top of LCDF or you get punished. And I feel like you mentioned it, right? You go straight in through that portal. That's an ego chow and you're feeling confident. And there's not much you can do to distract away from that. Yolu being one of the youngest fraggers in the EMEA region on the Valk, just finding success, led by Psychop. I mean, this team is dangerous.
It certainly is, and Les de France are now dangerous in this game as well because they have the ability to rotate north. They might be able to take the zip line up towards the wall, but it might be a little bit of a risky play if they don't have that seer, get the information that will be clear. We don't know who's waiting at the top of that. Instead, they might be thinking about a little bit of a different rotation, not taking that risk, even though they get stuck in the mud for a few seconds. But the more dangerous thing is for anyone who's holding down that position, Les de France now got plenty of loot to work with as well, having just won that fight, having done the armory, everything they want to do and everything they want to have as far as attachments and meds are concerned. I mean, you can see in the backpack right now of Psychop, right? It's looking very, very strong for them. This is an interesting move for them. They're going to go deep into zone. Maybe they're thinking about get a little bit more extra information themselves on where that zone is going to be ending up.
Sometimes making that negative rotation out into zone to grab a rain console or a survey beacon is everything that you need, especially when you're rotating in from that chokehold by IMC Armory. Do we want to take the zip line, go up to wall? Should we hit the grav cannon? Grav cannon's going to be a lot of noise and really tough there. The zip line, you typically have one team camping it. I've seen a lot of people anchor it off with the fences and then utilizing the trident to kind of drive through some of those chokeholds. It's all right, post kill, ninja kick that spider. My gosh.
Fun fact, as we see Ascend doing the spiders and picking up a little bit extra loot, I had a nightmare the other day where I was trying to hold down an endgame building in Apex. Yes, I am that sad. And a spider got through the door and jumped at my face, and it was terrifying. I woke up in the night and was like flailing everywhere. It was a weird dream, but it shows how much I think about Apex. Passion on top of this building, trying to hold out the team rotating through this choke at the moment. We'll take our attentions away from what happens in my bedroom back to what's happening in the game.
Ayo. Not gonna lie, all the brutality against spiders is really offending me. Just kidding. I actually don't like spiders either. I just like Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen, not really those 8-legged arachnids.
Yeah, I was going to say, after that dream, I'm not a fan of spiders anymore. Didn't mind them too much until that point, but Passion's still, with his charge rifle, holding out teams. Amaz is only 221 damage away with that charge rifle from getting Passion fully kitted out in purple armors as well, and should be able to do a decent amount of damage as this team tries to cross 3, maybe not the decent damage that you want. You've got to reload that thing, though. That's the one thing, Amaz. You've got to make sure you got some ammo in so you can do that damage. But for now, just looking at the zone, it is very, very busy at the moment, Tiff. A lot of teams inside of the zone, a lot of teams inside of wall. You've got Foot making their way to the armory as well, where we just saw a couple of fights breaking down. But Ascend, very interested in their position. They're in a choke, which is on the west side of this zone. And we have seen endgames pull down to where they find themselves right now.
Rather interesting. Passion just kind of living off the points that they got in map number 1's victory. I would love to see something strong here. Granted, 20-point game in map number 1, maps 2 and 3, they've only found themselves 7 points throughout those durations. So this needs to be a rather strong game for them, and they need to start it out here. They have the advantage, but if you keep gatekeeping, they are literally making so much noise over here, and it kind of, bodes to the aspect of where we saw the teams that were around IMC Armory. You were just bringing a lot of noise.
Well, here's Aurora, and this is a really big moment, I think, in today. Full stop for the lobby, for Aurora, maybe even for their season. They found, finally, it feels like, an isolated fight on the edge of zone. And Aurora put some big games together on Stormpoint when they were playing edge, and they were using that Catalyst wall effectively. Sunset's doing some decent damage with this car. That's more than decent, as V2 will get taken down, and the new boy to the lineup doing the most damage you could ask for in that 3v3.
Maybe new to the lineup, but not new to the game. Sunset has been waiting to find a team to play. Now, granted, had a brief stint under the GG roster in Split 1, but had announced back in December that he was looking for a team to join, wanting to grow and handle through Split 2. And yes, unfortunately, that comes in the aspect where Maliwan is no longer a part of that team, and Sunset kind of has to step in. But it's interesting, right? Sunset on the Seer, right? That brings a little bit of interesting aspects because Aurora typically had played triple assault characters on Stormpoint when Maliwan was a part of the group.
Looks like they've converted to the dark side, so to speak. Obviously, Seer, we know all about Seer. We've talked about Seer more than enough on what he brings to the game. And when you're a team like Aurora, if you can get down that exhibit, then it's just going to help you. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. Having the identity and the outlines of where those players are is certainly going to make life easier, but life right now for Passion, not good. They were all stunned on their way off the top of that building they found themselves in on the zip line. It's Nightmare Esports who now take residence.
Bro, that guy just fell from the roof, just falling down. Now a full elimination out. Nightmare Esports, but it's Gaming Gladiators that are biding their time on the outskirts of Command Center. And I really want to see a strong performance here from Hardeki as he just absolutely takes so much damage. Arcs are going down, but that could be really critical. Leogree able to get a knock onto Tyler, so this is a 2v2 situation against Vexed.
Gaming Gladiators have to send it through the Dark Veil as well. It's a 2v2, like you say. Hardeki did a huge amount of damage. You saw the idea, though, from Vex. They wanted to isolate Hardeki on his own, but isolating Hardeki, he's still going to do damage to you. And we talk about Hardeki all the time, but it's Artico and Leogree who clutch up in that 3v3, but Morning Stars want a piece of it now. They hear this fight going down between Vex and GG, and they want to try and pick up the final KP, but GG are out there. They don't give them the opportunity.
Yo, I'd be out of there too, Onset. I just finished off that fight. We already lost out on one. I do not want to stick around for the third party. It's kind of the worst part about Apex when you end up fighting an isolated 3v3 and the next thing you know, you've got half the lobby on you.
Yeah, you just, you're like, this fight's gone on for 5 seconds longer than I wanted it to, and now I have to start worrying about all of the apes in the lobby just appearing out of nowhere. SMS, though, they weren't able to get into the position to third party in the way that we kind of alluded to here. The question is, did GG get the banner of Hardeki? Can they get back into the game? At the moment, they're rotating out. They're trying to get out of Command Center and trying to find a way to escape, but they're not going to be able to, as Steven cuts down Artico on the cross. Just one left now for GG. Trying to make a last stand, not going to happen. Morning Stars, they get their dessert, they get the third party, and they get the 2 KP they were desperate for.
I mean, congratulations to Morning Stars, right? They needed that KP. They need to have something that's going to give them the momentum moving forward. And with Sivan on the crypto, you can utilize that EMP, which is great for third parties. It's just tough. I didn't see that come out. So, and GG, man, what were they going to do? Like, genuinely, what are they going to do? Go out the back of Command Center, push out into the open circle in the line of sight of everyone? They would have ended up having to play their life, and it would have been a rather challenging recovery.
Certainly tough situation for GG. And even though they finished with some real momentum on World's Edge, a little bit of a slow start here on Stormpoint for them. A couple of KP, though, which is certainly never disappointing. But looking at where that zone is going, it is going more north. It is going towards the wall, and maybe where we saw Alliance almost pick up a win a couple of days ago in the last game day that we saw on one of those platforms or just outside that zip building. So we'll have to see how the game does develop, if we've got a little bit more information as we go through as to where we're going to see the end of this game. But Morning Stars now holding this choke, now holding out this team, and with the digi threats and the smokes down, maybe the team inside the building thought they might have a bit more success on pushing out, but if you met with a digi threat, all of a sudden, it doesn't become quite as comfortable.
Look, there's one team and one team in particular that was making their way into the zone, and that's going to be Aurora. Sure, you see Seer, so it's going to be Sunset getting cracked right there, but Ranch is able to grab it down onto Nisa. Now, Aurora has that advantage. They just have to get rid of that interceptor pylon and let it eat.
Great spray coming in from Ranches, doing damage, and like you say, getting rid of the pylon. Sunset now can take down Mask. There's only one player alive here for SMS. He's trying to run for his life. He's running for the hills. The Crypto jumps up and does damage to Sunset, but it's not going to be enough by the looks of things. Aurora, all of a sudden, here, Tiff, and everyone at home are reminding me of the Split 1 Aurora. They're taking fights, they're winning fights, and they're doing it quickly as well.
I mean, straight up, they could just be more confident on Stormpoint. And we've seen a lot of their success come from that as Ascend essentially wipes the floor with Foot Esports, now done and dusted. They can begin their reset. They have completely cleared out this side of the map and can now focus on playing forward and positioning themselves nicely. Now, granted, you can see where that zone is starting to pull. And you know who's going to have the upper hand in that next zone? It's going to be Aurora.
Aurora certainly inside of, well, I should say having a really good line of sight of where that zone is going to be going. Tough pull, though, for Ascend. I mentioned how we've seen zones pull towards the choke that they were holding down. They're probably one of the teams that is now furthest away from where that zone has gone. So they're going to have to navigate their way through some of these teams and through the terrain, and also potentially meet up with Aurora towards this end game as well. But, I mean, what a comeback this has been. Even though we have 13 squads remaining, you have Cleve fully decked out in red. You've got Sunset full red Evo armor as well. And I'm pretty sure that Ranches isn't too far away. And this is the danger of Aurora. It takes one game, one fight, and all of a sudden they start rolling and they can fly up those leaderboards.
I mean, you had kind of asked, you were talking about it, you're like, better late than never. You do not want to go into the second half of Split 2 and try to make something happen, because at that point, it could be too late. And now SPS sitting in third overall of the day, looking to poise themselves in a solid positioning, but you know that Aurora is out to their right. You've got teams to your left, you got a dual seer exhibit, and I'm like, I don't want any part of that if I'm SPS. I'm biding my time.
Well, SPS have got some decisions to make, and we've got a listen-in lined up to make sure that we hear where those decisions are and how they're made. Listen, of course, presented by WD Black.
Il y a une team chute ou pas? Presque bon recul, dans 10% les gars. Mais on... Ah non, bah j'ai pas l'avoir.
Si, on va pouvoir... Après, en soi, on tempo ici, hein. On lane d'ici en tempo. Hein. Ça joue ça?
Ça joue, bah,
ça va être tendu, mais... Il y a une team derrière ça là. Les gars, sinon je roule catalyst et on va dans leur dos. Hein.
Oui, oui, aussi, hein. Tu l'as ton goal?
94%, 95%.
Ok, tu l'auras.
17.
Bah on doit send une team, genre on doit faire 3.
Il y a la team ici, il y a la team ici.
Faut que tu rolls.
Jouez sur moi.
Ah, je suis crack.
Roll
l'instant dès que tu peux, gros. Ils sont en train de les push.
Me battre.
Regardez à gauche maintenant.
On prend tous les kills à la gauche, on prend tous les kills.
C'est vrai, on est bien sur Yoshi. Ah, mais ils vont...
Je peux la culte, hein, mais bon.
Non, on est bien, on regarde à gauche, je pense. T'es ma gauche, free shot.
Go.
Go
Swing ça.
Tire one, mort.
Tire one.
Save.
All crack,
one. Non.
Mort.
Ah, mais on a 0 kill.
0 kill sur ça.
0 kill, gros.
C'est une dinguerie.
Well, SPS fall, the listen-in. My French isn't too good, but I certainly recognize there was a couple of players on their right, and it's Lucie de France as they fall as well. Element 6 making a late run at this zone and building a little bit of momentum here, Tiff.
Hey, look, that's exactly what you need to do. Graceful, K-Swinny trying to stay alive. There's no cover, though. A rock in a hard place, and it's 2R1C that is going to be punishing them alongside of Aurora and Ascend. So I like where they are right now. This is not too bad. They've got a little bit of a tree, a little bit of a rock, and you can kind of try and head peek and find some damage. They do have that next zone where they are, and you can see one of the players has also extended out to try and find cheeky LOSs as well. VJack's going to get punished for that extension, but that's okay. Can really get back, and it's Aurora that has such a good standing position here. They just need to go across this open gap into that next zone, which is going to be rather dangerous.
Top 5 for Aurora. Nightmare Esports eliminated, but what's the one team who I said had to navigate from where they thought end zone would be to where it's going? It's Ascend. And Ascend are there once again. They're right down on the southern side of this zone. Everyone else is in front of them. They're going to have to walk their way uphill, though. But Jailings, who we also mentioned, made a really quick rotation. They're also in a pretty good spot at the moment. But I've got to say, Tiff, I'm excited to watch Aurora in this endgame because they're taking on Ascend and post-kill. The Rat, almost hero from a previous game, is falling alongside Lufka, and Ranches is turning up now.
Look, if the Fragger Lufka is going to go down, we know the clutch factor for Ascend is going to be rather dire, but if there's one team member of Ascend that is able to regain, it is going to be Kashera. It's a little late, so he's going to have to play his life and just hold the fort down, but Jaylings, Nags kind of fighting forward, able to take out Game of Drones, but that Storm is taking a lot of damage, so Nags needs to focus up, get with the team, and think about their next positioning. I think Kashera just needs to play the life, kind of nestled in there. You can see right there by the storage units, just want to just vibe out. Don't even look my way, you know?
Yeah, Aurora saying, cool, we're coming for you. Kashera, you can run, but you can't hide, my friend. We're going to see the exhibits going down as well. We're going to see Sunset making a little bit of push as well. Jaylings fancy a bit of this. Ascend are eliminated. Jaylings down to 2 as well. Nags trying to fire through this Callous wall, playing behind that knockdown shield to see if he can last and maybe pull off a solo victory. But this is all about Aurora at the moment. They're forced to back up from the Bangalore, and all of a sudden, Jaylings, as they go down, 2R1C. They take the prominent position on the map. And with 2 players only alive from Aurora, can they pull this off, Tiff?
We're looking for Cleve. We're looking for Sunset. They're going to have to hold down the fort because they're not going to be able to get the res off. And 2R1C seem to have the power position, but Hyarka goes down. So this is a rather tantalizing issue here. Onset, what's going to happen?
I think this is a 2v1 situation. They just have to close things out, and it's 2R1C who close out a very, very exciting 4th game of the day. The first one here on Storm Point. They've proven it's not just World's Edge. They get the job done as well. It's end zones that they can call here on Storm Point as well. But I am fascinated to see how many points Aurora put on the board there, because that kill feed, I think 95% of it felt like it had Aurora next to it. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's the Aurora that we remember from Split 1. Just the absolute force of nature. And Gaskin, get back in here, bro. We got to hear just how you were expecting, you know? I mean, 2R1C, they were so strong in the A versus C matchup last week, but Aurora stepping to form.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Aurora back in form, I guess. I think Storm Point usually is a map that is better for them, right? They're going to be able to take a few more fights. It's a little bit more sporadic with what's going on. I mean, composition-wise, again, we're seeing a lot of Seer, Valk, and Cat, and I think that Europe is starting to maybe get to a position where they're finding a more solid base for Legends as well, and perhaps that's going to be a good thing for these lobbies, because once you realize what you're going to be playing against and there's less randomness about it, you're not going up against any kind of different comps just here or there when you're rotating, you kind of know how the game's going to play out. But I think that might change the further we get into today. We'll have to wait and see.
I kind of like that, right? We're talking about what could potentially change. I mean, APAC North last night, they had an 84% on Valk. Seer 60% when compared to EMEA. Seer was at 74%, Valk at 79%. So a little more Valk in APAC North, a little less Seer. They had some cryptos, and it was really interesting to see some of the legend compositions that had occurred yesterday. So very nicely, but I feel like in every fight that we saw on set, multiple Seer exhibits, multiple catwalls as we let these highlights roll and repeat that LCDF onslaught.
Yeah, I mean, this was LCDF being a little bit feeling disrespected, I think it was, at the start of that game when the team was above them on the armory and just waiting for them to leave. They were like, okay, we'll leave, but not before you're dead. Taking the portal to chase them down as well. This Bangalore ult, by the way, was one of the best that we've seen so far. It stunned pretty much every single player, I think, from... There was Nightmare Esports who threw that one down. GG had some good moments in this game as well. They won this fight. That was a really important one for them against Vex Gaming, but unfortunately, the third party came in. But, I mean, the 3 men on your screen right now, Aurora. We've been waiting for this. Everyone's been like, what has happened to Aurora? Where have Aurora been? Well, that's the kind of performance that we saw from them last season, that all of a sudden, from that big performance, spurned them onto some magical things. And I'm very excited to see them in the next game at Storm Point, see if they can continue this.
Yeah, as much as I would like to be sold on it and say like the Aurora of old form of Split 1 is back, I'm not convinced just yet. And that's pretty tough for me to say, Gaskin, because I feel like it's not a fluke. We know they're incredibly talented, but just kind of being the devil's advocate in this situation, until I see it again, I'm not going to believe it.
Yeah, you need to see it being repeated. You need to see consistency. That's what Apex is about. You can't just have the one-off game and then suddenly everyone's going to believe you're going to be able to, start winning things and being playoff champions and all of that. It has to be consistent across the board, but certainly good signs for a newly formed team that have made that change. We had to see these things start to come into the fray. Otherwise, I think there would have been a lot of worry around this Aurora side. But that is certainly for good viewing. If you are a fan of Aurora, that is the Aurora we used to see. You know, high kill games and a second place. It does seem like at least they know how to do it. We just need to see them doing it over and over again.
As we have the match 4 results on your screen, yes, 2R1C came out victorious, bringing in VJax as the team. Jurovic no longer with that roster. It's been that way for the past 2 match days, but we were curious how that team was going to perform, so congratulations to them for getting a victory here in map 4. But it's the 12 eliminations for me on set. You were asking. The kill feed was lighting up with them. Second place, 12 eliminations, and on to the back half. Outplayed coming in 11th. Passion, your map 1 victory, only getting 1 point. But teams like GG, that was really unfortunate for them. Outside of Command Center, things looked really stark for them right after they had finished that fight. Unfortunately, there was just nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, very, very tough situation for GG to find themselves in. But I kind of want to just highlight Vex Gaming as well, because it's almost as if Yuki has the crystal ball now. We passed that too. We're saying, yeah, they can have like a really, really strong game, and then all of a sudden they go a little bit quiet. We'll have to see if that is going to be, you know, you can't win every game, let's be real, for Vex Gaming, but certainly with the change to Storm Point, they have to just try and maybe adjust the way that they're going to approach things. The fight took a little bit too long against GG, and unfortunately they kind of got caught out in that fight, didn't win that 3v3. But one team that's been a bit quiet so far today, SAF Esports, have been pretty consistent so far, and they've been a bit off the boil.
Ooh. As we look at the series results, Ascend 49 points, 2R1C solidifying themselves in that second place with 41 points, and SPS, you know, that's good to see here in 32 points, tied with J-Lings. And you look to Aurora, that performance, getting 21 points, have just shot them up the leaderboard, because the first 3 maps they'd only gotten 9 points. So now they find themselves inside that top 10. Now you ask, what does this mean, right? You see 49 points by Ascend's name. At the end of the day, your overarching leader that's going to win the match day will be granted 25 points. There's a points total that will be allocated at the end of the day that will go towards your total score. And after the end of regular season, if you've got enough points and you find yourself inside the top 10, you get to find yourself going to split 2 playoffs. So that's what these teams are fighting for here. And finally, Aurora getting some points, man. It feels good.
I'll tell you what, 2 games to go. What was it? 19 points. Again, delving my way into the mathematics of today. I might be wrong. Between them and Ascend at the moment, just put up 21 points. Just saying, it's very doable in 2 games to overturn it if Ascend have one off game. So Aurora fans, I know that you're probably looking at the standings right now and you're thinking we need to be probably in the top 4, top 5, top 3 to guarantee ourselves going to playoffs for a couple of weeks here. If we really want to see these the 3 gentlemen turn up in the LAN environment, which I think they deserve to do, it's got to happen. It's got to happen now. But what a way to start Storm Point for them. That was an absolute banger.
Oh, look, I'm just ready to see what's going to happen on the back half of this. We still have 2 more maps to go. But before that, let's cut to a quick break. And when we come back, map number 5.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
A lot of teams are looking like they want to take a fight at the moment, but at the same time, they're then thinking about this rotation. because it's all well and good one team wanting to take the fight, but both teams have to take the fight till we see an actual engagement. Passion looking to try to do damage, but a team will just run away from them. Passion are going to force all these teams away from this northern wing that I was talking about, because this circle, I have seen it finish just a little bit north of where Passion could pull away. There are plenty of circles where it could go, but maybe that's what they're aiming for right now. You saw a few pings from them as well, probably communicating to each other saying, look, this is where it might be finishing, up towards those rocks outside this window. They can just be sitting pretty in this building. They can chill. They can make sure they make themselves big, get those Evo shields up as well.
Well, Ascend versus Bifix Gaming. That's still going on, by the way, but we'll focus on what's going on right now, and it's going to be Vexed Gaming. I'm pretty sure it's Gaming Gladiators who they're going up against in the distance as well. In a lovely little spray coming in from Matafe, but the damage was exchanged. As you can see, Unlucky just pops that bat in time. As the charge rifle damage was enough, but there's a cheeky little coming here, and it looks like Vex might have put themselves in a bit of a pinch here.
Bit of a pinch. Good damage, though, from the 9, but now it's a 2 versus 2. Got a chunk with the PK.
63. Misses the second shot as well, and Unlucky just decides to get back to a teammate here. It's a 2v2 between GG and Vex. Leogli trying to scarp away. They do have that high ground. Obviously, CQ going to go in just to cancel those heals for a few moments. Couple of frag grenades being thrown his way. It's not too nice, but they do get the res onto Hardeki as well. So GG have the man advantage in this fight. They can take their time, but Tafe wants to get stuck in. Not going to be able to do so. Unlucky on his own. Manages to get one play around the knockdown shield. Has to reload, though, and that's going to cost him. Vex Gaming, 2 back-to-back games now with barely a point on the board. GG win the big fight against one of EU's best fighting teams.
I mean, GG versus Vex, that's a 3v3 I would pay to watch over and over when we're here in Pro League. But the action is not done yet. 2R1C in a scuffle over towards down Beast. Is be a scuffle in the to be able to actually get out of this situation after this fight.
2R1C look like they had the advantage and do have the advantage. They only had one player go down, also got the gold knockdown shield, which is going to help out with that med situation, like you were saying. Player back to his feet with some HP and some shields to work with. And Big Fix Gaming, they win a fight, but it's not against Ascend. I'm afraid to say. You did see who got eliminated in the top right for just a second, but Big just moved to the north of Barometer. Interesting to see, actually, what Ascend are doing at the moment, because if on the map overhead that we've got available, Ascend going right down to the southern side of Storm Point for now. They want to try and stay away from things. They want to try and maybe make a rotation towards Shipfall, of course, where Aurora did land. Now, I'm kind of interested to see what the plan is here for them.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they are trying to make a move to the eastern side so they can hit a beacon or a ring console to get some animation, because we've seen this from Ascend already today on World's Edge as well. They really the game they won on match number 2. They made a rotation into the zone, hit the ring console late, and then they were able to position themselves because of that. So that may well be a decision made by Ascend. They might not feel like their loot is that great, because you've got to remember they were sharing Barometer. Their loot was probably pretty poor because of that, and they're just looking to see if they could pick up any extra pieces elsewhere.
Or here's me theory after him right now. They just realized Aurora ran through the lobby. Did you know behind Aurora? They'll kill everything. We can just walk in with them.
It's like when there's an ambulance or a police car on the motorway, and you always have that. And then I can get past all the traffic. That's what Ascend are thinking right now.
That's what they call intrusive thoughts, Dan. Never let those win, people at home. Never let them win. We do get a little bit of information on where we're going, and we're going to be pulling a little bit south from that circle. The stuff falls into a pretty open area, so this is going to be a very, very tough circle for people to hold. It's going to be pretty much where Foot Esports find themselves at the moment, just to the north. And if they can hold down this side of Jurassic, then they will be in a very good gatekeep team moving through, but also in a great position towards this end game as well. So Foot Esports, who I mentioned, have shown some really good consistency so far this split, Dan. Been quiet today, but this might be the game that changes that for them.
Yeah, quiet today, down in 15th position, but because this lobby has been quite close in terms of points totals, all you need is a victory, and then you're right back up into the swing of things, and even could have a chance of winning the entire day. With it's not a crazy points total. We see first place, and mistakes could be made. I think consistency has been impressive, yes, across the board. It's all well and good to talk about consistency on a round day basis, right? Oh, they were consistent across 6 maps, but if you can be consistent across 24 maps, then suddenly you are going to be one of the teams that is positioning yourselves for playoffs. It doesn't matter if you are one of the teams that are necessarily at the top of the leaderboards every time, but if you are there or thereabouts in the top 10, in the top 5, you're at least in the conversation. And okay, you might not get as much prize money from the regular season at the top of the leaderboards every time, but if you are there or thereabouts in the top 10, in the top 5, you're at least in the conversation. And okay, you might not get much prize money from the regular season, but as long as you get to the playoffs and you're still in that conversation and you can assess what's happening, you do your research. The one thing that's amazing about Apex Legends and Battle Royales in general is that anyone on any given day can win when it comes to those LAN finals, and you just want to be there. That's what everyone wants to do.
Well, here is Apex Legends resident Sharks in the Water. It's Aurora, and they are on the lookout for some blood at the moment. As you see, the previous game was probably one of the standout games that we've had so far. Unfortunately, didn't quite get the win, but the second place to the huge amount of KP certainly kind of invigorated the lineup. I would imagine the comms are going to be clear. They're going to be dangerous if they see an opportunity to pounce.
And they really will pounce. At the moment, they are just going to hold this choke because they know that teams going to potentially walk past them, but it's from both sides. That's why they are at the moment just kind of strafing back and forth, trying to work out, is it going to be north or south where we actually meet someone? We can see the map overhead, and it looks like there are 2 teams that may come to their south, so there is a real opportunity they can third party. There we go. It's going to be BFG that are down there. BFG don't look like they want to take that rotation in, and I think they know full well if you go down that choke and there is a team there, you are just going to leave yourself vulnerable, but BFG may have also heard another team in the area, and it looks like they are getting involved with that one.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a battle for information there as we see a ring console trying to be hit by both of those teams. Only one can hit it, though, you would imagine, unless there's going to be a little bit of a gentleman's agreement that, hey, you go first, we'll go afterwards. Trust me, that ain't going to happen, but Aurora in a good position once again to try and approach this zone towards this end game. Looking elsewhere and keeping my eyes on what Ascend are doing. And I think you've called it perfectly, Dan. They want to approach this zone from the east. They want to try and work their way into a position where they feel that the traffic is going to be quiet. But TR1C, they have been anything but quiet today, Dan. They have been absolutely superb with some of their performances we've seen they've put in. And now they're getting some decent damage as well with these shields cracks. They get the first knock. They're looking to finish it off as well, but 17 squads remaining. This is pretty isolated. This is right at the north of the zone.
It's isolated at the moment, but Game of Drones are in the area, so you need to finish this one quickly. Otherwise, Game of Drones are going to be joining it, and they're going to make life very difficult for you. The reason why Game of Drones might join, and you can see the shots now coming across. There they are. Game of Drones joining before any knocks happened. So Game of Drones maybe just slightly mistiming that one. Because of where this circle is going and because of all the areas that are already taken, teams are going to have to take edge fights if they are presented to them. If you can third and you can pick up some easy KP, you definitely take that right now. It looks like Game of Drones will back off, and because of their presence, this fight just stops completely. So all three teams are now just going to be able to reside together.
Yaka just making sure that he's checking his back with that heartbeat sensor as well, making sure there's going to be nothing surprising happening. Well, I'll tell you what would have been surprising is if we saw a Prowler take down a pro player in this lobby. Ascend under duress, though. You can see Lufka's barely got any HP. And you got to hope there's not a Prowler knocking about at the moment, because one little bite to the backside and Lufka will go down. Manages to just about get a couple of cells off, though, to make sure that isn't going to be the case. But it's GG. Again, we're holding them out from that high ground. Ascend do reset, though. But, I mean, looking at the shielding at the moment, because Shera's only got white shields at this point in the game, and it's going to make working their way in from edge extremely tough.
And this is going to be a circle pull. Actually, you can see on the 10 screen, the circle is pulled back down south, which is really good for those teams who were just kind of waiting to see how the shift was going to be. It was always going to be one of 2 ways. It was either going to go heavy north or heavy south, judging by the circle that we'd seen from Zone 2. It was never really going to go east or west. So there are 4 or 5 teams that were already holding this southern zone. Aurora are one of those as well. They were patient, they were holding that choke, and now they're going to be, what they think, dominating the southern side of the map. But there is another team that could potentially join them a little bit later, but we'll have to see what happens.
Oh, Aurora versus Jailings. This is a heck of a fight to go down. Both these teams have been superb so far today. Sunset falls. However, it's just trades across the board at the moment. Cleve's trying to work through those knockdown shields. Jailings Esports will be eliminated, but I'm not sure that Aurora got those finishes on some of the players. There's more teams in the area here that are coming to introduce themselves, and with Aurora only having 2 members on their feet, they have to be extremely careful here.
This is what I mean. Aurora were alone, but then suddenly Jailings came along, and then 2 teams skyward diving saw the commotion here to the southern side of Jurassic Park, and they said, actually, okay, we might have a little peek at this one. Maybe there's KP that we can grab. Maybe this could be one of the best positions if we can win these fights. But now everyone's kind of stuck fighting against each other because so many teams arrived. You're not able to capitalize on any of those knocks that happened because they all joined at the same time.
Aurora get Sunset back on his feet. That means they can play as a full 3. However, now there's shots coming in from the south as well. They have to be so careful here. You can hear the 30-30 shot. Sunset still hasn't had the presence of mind or the opportunity to pop the white meds. Does now get that med kit off, which means they're fully healthy. Passion on the other side, you can see to the right-hand side of your screen. They've only got the blue shields to work with, but they don't have to do too much at the moment. They're just trying to hold out this rotating team in through Jurassic Park, and it's almost a battle between Aurora and Passion here of who's going to get the KP when this team has to eventually move through that choke?
Yeah, they have to. I mean, it will depend
horrible
whether they've got the
through.
skyward dive right, but even if they do, they're just going to get beamed. Like, these pro players, they don't really miss shots, like, very often. But, okay, looks like Aurora have decided that the Dark Veil can come down to give them a little bit of cover so they can start to think about things in a different manner. But there is a team that is even further south that is dealing extra damage to them and making life a living hell. Aurora just can't seem to catch a break at the moment as the revive won't come through either. Ranch is now left on his own. And that will just give room for this other team to potentially push up, but Aurora's still going to try and stick these.
They want to try and stick this res. They're determined at this point. It gets cancelled again by a CQ, though, and Aurora, that wall's going to disappear in a few moments' time, and Ranches, even with the Bangalore smokes, is not going to have a good time. Aurora eliminated. The momentum does not continue here on Storm Point in game number 5, and they will fall much, much earlier than we expected.
Now, just look at everyone getting involved in this party. V2 have been able to escape because of it. But Game of Drones now taking a look. But Game of Drones will walk on up, and V2 said, well, we've got Digi-threats waiting for you through the smoke.
Joke will fall, though. Bitfix Gaming eliminated. Game of Drones eliminated as well as V2 try and hold. Here's another third party at this point. It's a party that nobody really wants to be a part of. Everyone wants to go home early as V2 hold their ground. Should be some shield swaps available for them as well. Interested to note the kill feed as well. Ascend eliminated, and it's GG who managed to do the damage. GG are having a really strong game here.
Yeah, Ascend, who tried to make that rotation from the eastern side, just weren't really able to get past the likes of Totem, Nightmare. GG that you spoke of now go to this Jurassic Park choke as well to try and join in. The amount of death boxes over here, by the way, this is a graveyard. There's going to be plenty of shield swaps available, but also you play the lottery game of if you go to one of those death boxes, those shields might have been taken out already, and then you could find yourself losing a fight because of it. So you've got to be careful. You've got to be able to at least analyze which ones are available or not. And maybe if you get time, you could take them out. But V2, they see a little bit of a lull in the lobby, and they're going to try and make their way out before the other team does. And actually, they're going to take the fight with GG.
Artico goes down. There's a few teams in the vicinity now. It was interesting to see that GG probably saw all those death boxes and thought, do you know what? This isn't a good idea. Joke takes a bit of damage on the cross, has to pop that Phoenix kit. That's going to keep him out of the fight for quite some time as well. But V2 do make the cross, but there's a team in front of them now. And all of a sudden, the Valkyrie's trying to send it. Flesh damage is going to be enough. The smokes go down as well. The Digi-threat is going to be enough just to kind of shred a tickle of the shields off, but not to get the break. But that one is much more damaging. Limek does some work. Seven does it alongside of him, and V2 will be able to stabilize.
Yeah, this is really good from V2, and the smokes that are coming down from other teams are just helping them at this point because they've got the Digi-threats, and V2 just consistently pushing forward, taking advantage of any sort of extra space they've been able to gain from the gun skill that we're seeing on display. 28 seconds until round 4 closes. That circle is going to go over towards the water where Foot currently reside, and V2 have been able to apply so much pressure in all these different areas.
Well, V2 under pressure. We see a Valkyrie ult into the skies as well, and it's a perfect time to jump into a listening with V2 because they are doing so much damage in this lobby.
Ouais, moi aussi.
J'arrive, Zidane. Crac un. Choque-toi. Dans mon dos. Le la Valk. Oh là là, ça me casse les couilles dans mon dos, frère. Zidane, viens jouer aussi, tu veux. Tu te fais pas faire tomber. 3 mecs, Zidane, sur toi. Pardon.
Frère, je peux pas faire plus, ouais. Je les ai tellement enculés, les gens, ouais. Je regardais, frère. Regardez ce que je leur ai fait.
Well, V2 were doing some work, but GG, they are having a game to remember here, Dan. Artico, with that Digi-threat and the Prowler, he'll fall as well. Morning Stars have fallen in the meantime. It is carnage with 4 squads remaining.
Hardeki trying to do the damage, but he's got a slither of health. Leogri also trying to utilize the shield, and Hardeki does get the final shots. Needs to get that swap immediately, but he can't find one at the moment. Eventually does do so. Foot get eliminated. 3 squads remaining. Is anyone going to press up? Yes, Hardeki unfortunately is going to be under pressure. The Passion boys, they noticed that he was going to be down on his own, but Hardeki, he's done crazy things before.
He has, but SAF, they're just waiting for the opportunity to pounce here. You see the 3v3 is finished quickly, but is anyone paying attention to SAF, who are moving up at the other side of the zone? It's a straight 3v3 with so much space available down. It's so rare we see a game with so much space in the end zone with only 2 teams alive.
A lot of space and a lot of time as well, because we've still got round 5 to close yet. So these guys can make sure they get their ultimates ready, assess what they've got in terms of utility. What grenades have we got? What abilities have we got as well? What team are we going up against? What abilities are they going to have as well? Because you've got all this extra time, it gives your IGL just that little bit extra to try and assess what's going down.
SAF certainly have the better position, you would say, with the height advantage. You can see the Light's trying to take a little bit of an off angle as well on the rock. They're trying to pin Passion into this corner, really make them work to do any damage. For Passion, it's about isolating someone. It's about seeing if you can maybe cut this map in half with a catalyst wall. Like you say, it's all about seeing what abilities you have to create an advantage in this fight. But you have to say, geographically, you're looking at SAF and you're thinking you're in the place you want to be.
And normally, high ground is going to be one of the better positions. We'll see where the circle pulls toward. It's going to be quite central in the middle of the water, you would imagine. But both teams have got exactly the same composition, so Dark Veils are going to come into it here. You've really got to choose where you're going to cut off in this final circle. What kind of vision do you want to impair of your opponents? And both teams are also going to have the ability to get the Seer ultimate down, right? So then you've got to try and decide when you're going to use it. You want to try and use it last. Maybe we'll see some crazy skyward dive possibilities as well if it gets, you know, mental in the final circle. But I'd expect at some point both Dark Veils go down and we see a straight 3v3 through those Dark Veils and who can do the most damage based off the information that's given.
Horizon trying to get focused out here as the piercing spikes try and catch him and maybe just tie him down to behind that rock. SAF just playing this one patiently. Light still playing away from his 2 teammates, but look at the move at the bottom of your screen here. Lackey's trying to move down and create a few problems, trying to get an off angle. Horizon has to be careful here as he will have those shields almost broken. Managed to just about keep enough of those shields there so that he didn't get taken down. But here come the Arc Stars now. Look at the off angle from Lackey. He wants to make a play here.
Wants to make the play. And I like this. I like taking as much space as possible, try and get as much sight lines as well, because now as the circle comes in, look at how difficult this is going to be for Passion. They've got their backs to the zone, and every single time they poke out, they're being watched by someone. Passion inevitably now need to Dark Veil to try and take a position, to try and at least isolate one of these players, and here we go. There's the Dark Veil coming out now.
Last has a really good line of sight, though. You can see from that high ground. He's also got an RE45. The only problem is he might not have done damage quick enough. SAF, they get that first knock. Horizon will fall, and now you're going to see a 2v2, but the RE45 usually wins those kind of fights. Blast joins the party at just the right time, and it will be SAF who close things out here on map 5.
Yeah, the patience from SAF just to wait and realize that the zone was going to be tickling the backsides of Passion. And even though Passion went for that all-in play of Dark Veiling and trying to get the position, you are completely right. The high ground, the rock that you had, you can see over the Dark Veil. That is when Dark Veil doesn't really work. And that's why we saw Horizon often used to try and counter a Dark Veil as well. Because you can get up above it, you can see everything, and you can then get over it. So you don't have to be having your vision impaired when you go through it.
Well, it's one game to go. It's time to bring Tiff back in to talk about that game, because multiple winners today, and a team that I said had been a little bit quiet all of a sudden win a game. Maybe I do have a script. Who knows?
Confirmed.
Look, I'm not saying it's possible, but it's possible at this point on set. You may be the script writer itself.
Terrible power. With great power comes great responsibility, and I am extremely irresponsible. So who knows how this is going to go in the last game.
Meanwhile, on set off screen, just like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have something strategically aligned. And then next thing you know, poof, he's going to pick a random winner and something crazy is going to happen in map number 6. But I mean, all in all, it was that was one of the longest 3v3 endgame fights I've seen in a long time. I'm not going to lie.
It felt like the longest endgame 3v3 I think I've ever seen in ALGS with that much space available. I mean, the zone hadn't even closed. You know, zone 5, we had 6 players left alive, 3 on each team. And I think that was just down to the fact that teams were trying to work their way through chokes. And that Jurassic Park choke, that was not where you wanted to be at any point. Like, so many teams fell around that gate and around those trees, trying to force their way through such a narrow entry. Is almost impossible for everyone to make their way through, and only one team survived at the end of it.
That's true. Sometimes it pays off to have that RE45, especially for endgame. It's absolutely disgusting what it can do in close range combat. And I just feel as if you are down a player in an endgame situation, having that RE45 essentially acts as two. It don't at me. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. But you can kind of go through the highlights. We can see the journey of Aurora getting cut short a little bit. And, you know, Gaskin, it's GG for me. It is Gaimin Gladiators just having some really great moments.
They've just had a breath of fresh air, it seems like, in this week. They've shown us why they should be a team that we have to be talking about. I mean, Hardeki often gets the plaudits, right? But you've got to just recognize that this is a full squad of players who are always going to be up there. I mean, Yogri, when I see the stuff on that screen and the ability that we see in terms of gun skill and positioning, and then you've got Artico there who often will do a lot of damage and gets a lot of assists because of it as well. The whole squad knows how to fight, and they work so impressively as a unit, which is why I think we have to give the entire team credit rather than just Hardeki. But it's good to see them back, right? It's good to see them performing well. It's good to see them in the final say when it comes to these final circles, that's for sure.
And congratulations to Startified Esports from coming out on top in match number 5. 7 eliminations with 19 total points, but you jumped down to the 3rd place. And yeah, you didn't get the overall placement points there with 12, but you did get 12 eliminations, thus far tying Startified Esports, even going out in 3rd. Having that last stand and trying to eliminate the team and kind of clutching up like that, those are the moments that are going to be make or break for your team when trying to find as many points as possible. Foot Esports making into the top 5. Let's jump on over to the second page. Aurora finding some eliminations prior to going out, as well as Bitfix Gaming. We haven't really seen too much of them today, and I just feel like, you know, I joke about it, Onset, you having the script, Wig having the script, Yuki having the script. Someone is like pulling the strings, the puppet master behind the Play Apex broadcast, because Vexed Gaming has not found their stride here in A versus C since we spoke to Yuki.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to see the Vex struggling in the first couple of games. Of course, still one to go, but when you're looking at the bottom half of that leaderboard, you're seeing some of the teams who are at the top half of the overalls, and what that means is it is so tight between everyone right now. But shout out GG, by the way, 50 points for them. It's only Ascend ahead of them, and I don't know how the tiebreaker works. We're back into maths land, but to me, it looks like they're joint first at the moment. You can't argue with me. 50 points each.
Gaskin, I'm looking at you for the math. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, 2R1C showing they are very consistent in that A versus C matchup, still in that top 3 position. But something is to be said here. The points are so close. Let's say Ascend or Gaming Gladiators have a bad map number 6. Teams like Aurora, E6, SPS, yeah, even J-Links could have an absolute banger of a map number 6, put down 20, 25 points, and find themselves at the top of the leaderboard. I feel like if you are within 1st through 7th at this point, it is anyone's game here today, Gaskin.
It is anyone's game. By the way, tiebreakers, I mean, wins is what will get you there. Ascend have had that victory. Does make the difference over Gaming Gladiators, but
so smart.
It's tied 50-50. We'll see what happens. We've still got another match to play yet, and Ascend have dropped off a little bit, whereas Gaming Gladiators seem to be in the ascendancy here. We are seeing now on Stormpoint a lot of our teams who are kind of more comfortable in fighting games, right? Where you are constantly fighting, loot, fight, re-armor, fight again, and then we're having so many kills available for them. The likes of GG, the likes of Aurora, they are having these high kill games, whereas the teams that are playing kind of zone heavy are maybe being punished a little bit because we're seeing like, what, 10 teams playing zone, and not everyone is going to be able to find success because of that, but we're seeing a lot of KB being picked up by some of these teams who are playing edge.
It's very interesting. I'm going to head out for a little break so you guys can catch up on game number 6. But before I run away, Onset, I want to leave you with this question. And it could be just because this is groups A versus C. We don't have Fire Beavers in the lobby. We don't have Alliance or KCP in the lobby. Do you feel as if a lot of these teams are kind of hungry for those KP that Gaskin mentioned because they feel more confident in these two groups?
Possibly. Tough to say.
Script man.
Okay, tough to say. No, I think everyone, the teams who are picking up KP on Edge Zone at the moment are the ones that are just feeling the momentum go their way, right? You saw GG, all of a sudden they won a couple of team fights today, and all of a sudden you see a couple of fights breaking out. You're like, we can pick up the pieces from this. We can reset quick enough, and we're confident enough to then retake a fight. You saw it with Aurora in that game number 4, where they were just all of a sudden won a couple of fights, then they're confident in the next fight. And it's kind of that, like, the momentum of the ball starts rolling for your team. And I'm interested to see Vex, it's the exact opposite, right? They've had a couple of fights. They lost the first one, 0 points. Next time they go into a 3v3, don't look confident in the fight and lose the 3v3. It's crazy how a game of Apex and a day of Apex can swing just based upon one team fight or getting caught off guard by another team. It's pretty crazy. And I think the teams to watch, certainly in this last game, is can Vex bounce back? Can Aurora pull off something absolutely ridiculous? Can Ascend hold on? Or will it be GG coming back to the fore after what feels like a lifetime almost since we were talking about them being at the top of those leaderboards?
Ooh, I mean, so many really good questions, but we only have one map to see the potential answers. We're going to cut to a quick break so Onset can go touch up his script. And when we come back, map number 6. Monster Energy, the official energy drink of the Apex Legends Global Series.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back, everybody, and we got one game to go before we close things out here on our day number 5 of the EMEA Split 2 Pro League. And this is the players who are leading the way with those slays, and it's going to be Hardeki at the top down, leading the way on the kill leaderboard. 12 kills for him.
Yeah, but Leogri right behind on 11. As I said, we have to give credit to everyone on this Gaming Gladiators roster because they all are stepping up now. After you said they've been out of the kind of headlines for what would seem like quite some time at this point, but now they're putting respect on their names. They are tied on 50 points with Ascend, and they are looking to try and take match day 5 under their wings. They want to get those 25 points that you get for first place. Match number 6 is just about ready. I'm very excited to see how this one's going to play out and who is going to be taking that first place.
I want a Dan Gaskin prediction before we go into game 6. Who's winning today?
I think we are going to see
Who's it going to be?
Gaming Gladiators, baby.
Ooh, got a GG fan in the chat, everyone. Let's hear it for Dan Gaskin. He's believing in the comeback story of GG making a run today, coming out on top, and maybe making a run towards the second half of this season. But we're going to see where that zone is going. Dan Gaskin. We've seen something pretty similar, I believe. Maybe a little bit more leaning towards Stormcatcher, but we might see a little Cascade zone here, or maybe a little bit north of the wall like we saw earlier.
Yeah, it could be a similar one to what we saw, but on the northern side of that zip, the one that I was thinking it was going to be last time when it shifted, and a few teams thought it was going to be that one before it shifted south. We'll know more when we get the Zone 2 information from any ring consoles, as we're now seeing our first place team, Ascend. They are currently ahead on Tiebreaker, and we'll have to see whether they will try and take this fight a little bit quicker against Bitfix Gaming, because Bitfix have been delaying Ascend. Ascend, they kind of backed out of the fight in the previous game. They went for a long old rotation, and they weren't able to get in the zone because of it. And Bitfix seem to have got the better on terms of loot. They've got blues, they've got purples, whereas Ascend, there was a few whites. There's 3 whites to be precise. So our leaders have not had the best looting phases so far.
Well, usually you get those armors in the kind of the western side of the POI, inside of that spinning turbine, whereas Ascend decided to try and take the high ground instead, maybe hoping they might have that beacon, but unfortunately for them, no beacon this time to play with. So Ascend, a little bit of an unfortunate rub of the green for them, and now that they're chasing down Bitfix, they're going to find out pretty soon they do not have the armors to play with. So this might be a little bit of a tough last game for Ascend, who, of course, coming into today, you said Kashera desperate for a win, desperate for a first place, and with how tight things are, this is not the fight they want to be taking.
Yeah, they will know full well, of course, that Gaming Gladiators are tied with them on points, and for Gaming Gladiators, this circle's perfect. Look at them. They are in Stormcatcher. The circle's going towards them. It could still pull a little bit west, but they can reside there for quite some time and just watch that kill feed. Wait to see whether Ascend get eliminated at any point, because even though it's in anonymous mode, you don't see who's getting knocked. You will get confirmation when a team is eliminated, and GG can just play this one patient. And as soon as they see Ascend have been knocked out, then it's just a matter of, waiting for 1 extra KP or 1 extra placement point, and they're probably winning today.
Vexed also making their rotation as well. Like we mentioned, Storm Point not been good for them, but maybe the final game of the day is where they can resurrect today and really make a push for those top spots. It really is just balanced perfectly here in the EMEA region for our final game of the day. And we can't even forget about 2R1C as well. We see them in our picture-in-picture on the left-hand side. Another great day for them in A versus C. It was where they put themselves into 7th place overall before this game day got started today with the big performance last time we saw them in A versus C. If they can repeat that, then all of a sudden they might be one of the teams we're talking about when it comes to qualification at the end of the split.
Yeah, I misread, and when I looked across the leaderboards, I thought I saw 2R1C on 38, so I was counting them out. But on 48, I mean, that means Ascend and GG have to worry about 2R1C as well. It's not as simple as just watching for the one team in your kill feed now. It is about playing your best game and making sure you put your best foot forward to secure those points, because we have 3 horses in this race. Even Passion, they're only 11 points behind. There is a world where a team like Passion could still get a victory here today if they were to get first place in this game and the other teams were to drop short. So a very tight match day. We've seen some match days dominated by a couple of teams and, 60, 70 points in some cases, but this one's been so close.
Interesting to see this fight still kind of, well, I will say fight, I would say exchange of virtual conversation going on between Bitfix Gaming and Ascend. Probably could have phrased that a little bit better, but you know what I'm talking about. It was interesting to see that Ascend decided to take the risk of using the crafter to level up those armors to give themselves a real fighting chance should that fight break out. And having done so, and having forced now their opposition away, they can take a little bit of time. But it's interesting to talk about, isn't it, how this contest kind of ruins the game plan for Ascend. They would have known it was coming. Maybe that forces you to change composition a little bit because you know you're going to be contested. It certainly slows down your rotation. And for a team who love to rotate as quickly as possible, get in a zone and, find a place to call home, Ascend have kind of been forced to play a different hand today. And it's been interesting to see how they've had to adapt.
It's still impressive that they are top of our leaderboards, right? The win on World's Edge and the points that were scored on World's Edge were so crucial for Ascend. In the first game, they went out in what, like 18th, and then they got a victory off the back of it. So I would never count them out. They are going to have a difficult rotation where they're going to have to go on the eastern side of the map, similar to what they tried previously. As for Game of Drones, they're going to be happy at the moment in Wall. There are a few teams up here that are all going to have to move south together, so they're kind of taking pop shots against one another at the moment, but they are likely going to have to take a fight at some point, or just try and beat them in a race, whether that be via the Skyward Dive, or just trying to move when maybe they're distracted.
E6 are an interesting team to watch as well, just to give you a bit of an idea of where they are. They're right at the top of Command Center, and they have the opportunity maybe later in this game, if it pulls towards that little compound outside of the north side of Stormcatcher, to maybe make an out of bounds play, Uber team as they try and walk in and take that position away from them. So E6 certainly dangerous for that end game if we do see that little zone pull for them. Aurora, everyone else is at the north at the moment. You can probably guess where Aurora are. They're working their way up from the south all the way from Shipfall Gale Station and trying to force their way in towards zone. They do have the opportunity to get a little bit of information on their way as well as they walk past a beacon to be hit. Ascend are going to be following behind them, but there's actually quite a lot of traffic on the southern side of zone at the moment. You've got Ascend, you've got BFG, you've got another team just approaching them as well on the slightly eastern side of where those two teams were outside of Antennae. So we might see a little bit of a fight breakout.
There could be a lot of fighting breaking out, and it'll be similar to what we saw in the last game. As soon as one fight begins, everyone hears that noise, they hear that commotion, and they want to get involved in the party. And sometimes it can stop the fights from happening, and sometimes it can just make the death balls that we've seen, the graveyards of death boxes, that it's just fight after fight. You can hope you reset. But I spoke about Passion earlier, and I said that they're not so far behind, 11 points behind first place, so they'll be looking to try and at least getting to the last circle to give themselves a chance of winning, and also just make sure they stay in the top spots to get some good amount of points from today.
Well, Nightmare are trying to force their way in at the moment, but they're being held out on height by Keller Gaming with this charge rifle. Taking damage in the zone is certainly something you don't want to be doing. SPS eliminated as our first team. Unfortunately, that will be the end of their game day. But Aurora, now you can see them. They're trying to fight their way into the bottom side of Storm Point. And now, with a Sentinel in the hands, might be a chance for Applied Totem to try and really disrupt that script that we were talking about a little bit earlier on. Not going to be able to hit it. That Sentinel isn't going to be charged up for now, so it's not going to be massive damage unless it's a headshot. But it's certainly something to try and force your way through, and so difficult to do if you're Aurora.
It's starting to get very congested now over towards Stormcatcher, and even Command Center is starting to fill up a little bit. There is a ring console in Command Center as well, so I don't know if anyone will actually be able to hit it. You can see GG, they've got a ring console to work with if they were even crazy enough to try for it. I mean, I have seen Dark Veils used to give yourself ring information before. As long as you've got some ultimate accelerants, I'm not completely against it. But I think for GG, they've got the current ring information. They can watch what teams are going to be coming from below. And actually, they're in a really good spot to gatekeep right now. A lot of high ground they can watch down towards the south.
Does look like that zone shift is going to be towards that little compound to the northern side of where Gaming Gladiators find themselves right now. So they are going to have to move at some point. They also have a little shield swap down there if they do get pushed. Leogri's decided he wants to make sure that anyone who's trying to coexist isn't going to be taking any angles that can catch GG off guard here. They know there's a couple of teams down here, and you can see, I'm not sure if Gaming Gladiators want to try and get involved with this, if they want to give up this high ground position, or if they want to see if there's any pieces they can pick up. But now that you've got Totem and Aurora down there, still kind of posturing up. Ascend also coming to join the fray ever so slightly, but they look more comfortable with the position they have right now. You can see the fences going down, which means they don't really have a plan to try and move from here unless an opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, I mean, they can stay there for now, but we've seen the zone, and they've seen that they're going to know they're going to have to move. Or GG know they have to move, and that's why GG are going to stay there. I think if GG were in a different position where they were chasing points, maybe we would see them look to try and get involved in a scrap down there, but GG can literally hold their current position at the south side of Stormcatcher and watch all these teams that are going to be so far below them, they're not going to have a chance to really fight back, and they should be able to pick up some KP. You can see Ascender trying to work out how they get around this and where they go from this point. They don't want to force themselves through a random chokehold and just give away their opportunity to win this match day of Pro League. So there's a lot of things to be thinking about for a lot of these IGLs now. As I said, so many teams in and around the areas of Stormcatcher as the circle starts to pull up towards the Choked by Thunderwatch, which is a horrible final circle, and I say that just because there isn't much cover. Once you've got rid of that one building in Stormcatcher, suddenly there's a lot of open space. You're trying to cling on to any blade of grass that you can hide behind, which just means there's going to be a lot of death as kind of round 5 closes.
Speaking of death, there's currently 3 teams in and around Command Center at the moment. It looks like Starter Fight have decided they don't want any part of this. They're just going to take themselves away from this fight. There's a team up on height, so taking the zips is going to be extremely dangerous and probably not the best idea to do for 2R1C. The Hemlock from the care package is going to give them maybe an opportunity to create some openings, but are they going to go for information here? Is it all about the ring console? Is it all about maybe just trying to hold down this position and see what else happens on the map and if any opportunities open themselves up? Or is it about them maybe wanting to take a risk, trying to see if they can take that team off a fight? As we see the zone now starting to close. 15 seconds until round 3 is upon us. And I think you're starting to feel the trepidation in this lobby, Dan, knowing that this is the last game of the day.
Yeah, a lot of nerves. I mean, we've got 6 teams who still aren't in this next circle. There's actually Nightmare Esports are currently going between the man cannons just back and forth. I don't think they have an idea of where they want to go. As now you see Aimbot and Psychbot start to move over towards SAF. This is the other side of Command Center, so we already know that Command Center is very much taken, right? There is not really much room to play. And it means that SAF are just going to be running and jumping out of the frying pan into a fire situation if they do get forced into that building.
L'Équipe de France were maybe thinking about catching SAF off guard there by rotating behind them. They kind of forced them away, trying to make sure that their backs are clear. Spiders kind of griefed them for a few seconds as well. Both teams safe, although Command Center now becoming busy once again. 2R1C still inside of it, and SAF been forced now back inside themselves. Interesting to see what actually happens at the northern side of this zone as well, around Thunderwatch, because J-Lings are there at the moment. Nightmare Esports also in the vicinity, and you're starting to see the kill feed light up a little bit here. And it's Gaming Gladiators who have decided it's time to hold their home ground. GG trying to take down Aurora, who are trying to take the fight to them. Hardeki has to bat, so does Leogri. It's up to Artico to hold the line.
Huge fight when we look at the grand scheme of this table and who's at the top. And Gaming Gladiators at the moment kind of tied first on 50. Dark Veils are down, but also the Seerolts are giving that info, as now Gaming Gladiators looking to see if they can do damage, but they don't want to drop here. You cannot afford to drop and give away any of this high ground. GG would have thought they would have been holding this building probably comfortably for a while, but now there's several teams around them just trying to take them off of their high ground. They had to make sure they backed them down. They had to show some presence. Otherwise, it could have got a little bit of a scary storm happening on Storm Point.
Well, for Aurora, the day is over. They will be eliminated. It was only one flash of brilliance we saw from them today. And, you know, when the dust has settled, you have to say, another disappointing day for them after the team change. Things still not working for Aurora. A lot of work for them, of course, to do. GG, though, I'd say they played that perfectly. Never overextended. Totem also trying to take the hype from them as well. GG have to reset here. But Totem were the team who came out of that choke success. For now, it's a little bit of a switch of positions. Who's down at the bottom side of things? It's going to be Ascend, who is still trying to kind of tiptoe their way up underneath all of this carnage.
Yeah, this is looking concerning for Ascend. You know, our lobby leaders right now have got to try and find their way. Do they go for the skyward dive? They would go over the top of Reply Totem, and it looks like that is what's happening right now. Ascend have just jetted up into the sky, and it's about where they land, because if they land anywhere in the vicinity of Gaming Gladiators, we could be seeing a fight between first and second.
Couple of teams forward as they try and make this tough rotate in as well. There's free KP on the menu here. If Hardeki can connect with these shots from distance, goes a little bit more aggressive this time with the car after the scout didn't quite get the job done. But you're quite right, Dan. This is Ascend down on the low ground, and it's 15 squads remaining. So if Ascend can't get out of this situation, it completely blows things open. And if Gaming Gladiators can be the team to take them down, what a result that would be.
Gaming Gladiators trying to assure their spot at the top of this table. Ascend eliminated. They will not be winning today in Pro League. It is going to be Gaming Gladiators who take that first place, but it's not done yet for GG. Remember, Passion was still very much in the equation, but for Ascend, it was always going to be that tough rotation. They tried to jet on up and get through and maybe just hope they would be able to avoid the sightlines, but because of the position GG took, it was so difficult for them.
And now we're going to have to see these teams inside a command center start to fight. Hyaka's trying to hold the line. He's doing a huge amount of damage. The Arcstar is going to hold down that push for a few seconds, and a big crack coming in as well. But now you're just seeing grenades being swapped, exchanged between the two teams. This is 2 or 3 teams involved in this fight. Surprise, surprise, 2R1C will fall as it's Element 6 who dropped down from that high ground position to clean up the pieces.
2R1C going out then means Ascend will hold on to second place for now. That's massive for Ascend in terms of their points total. A shame for 2R1C. Element 6 looking to try and carry on with this momentum. LCDF, get eliminated, but SAF are going to be that team pushed by E6. They are relentless right now as they take them down. 11 squads remaining, and we'll get a little bit of a breather as finally Command Center seems to have found its victors, and it's going to be E6. So, in terms of who's going to be winning today on set, Gaming Gladiators are still alive. They're on 56 points. Their closest competition is going to be Passion, who are on 40. It's looking really good for GG.
B2 now making their play outside of where this zone is going to be closing. They get that first knock, but they have lost one player. This is a duo trying to make something happen in this final moment. One player caught in the corner. Bitfix Gaming eliminated. The duo survived for now, but they have to be aware of the shots now coming in from distance. But Passion, they're taking on Vex right now as Bitfix fall in the distance, and Passion lose 0-0. So this is completely opening stuff up for those leaderboards in the final moments. Vex survived. No one has gone down. And maybe Vex have something to say in this final game.
And I mean, with Passion losing one there, you might as well just start giving those 25 points to Gaming Gladiators. They now extend their lead at the top by 7 over Ascend and 16 over Passion, who are the only other team alive. So we're looking like we know who's going to be winning today in terms of the overall standings, but from 4th down, things are very interesting indeed, and Vex are looking to try and have a big game here to push themselves up those leaderboards.
Tyler's just cutting the grass with that devotion at the moment, just carving a way through, and they're going to hit the Valcolt as well. Maybe he just bought enough time for his team to get in the skies. The tree's going to give him the cover, and although the Valcolt is risky with so many teams alive, Vex have to find somewhere to play here, have to make something work, as GG, with 7 squads remaining, only have Leogri on his own now.
And it depends how a keen eye they've been keeping on that kill feed. If they've been seeing the teams eliminated, they'll know they just need to, well, at this point, they've probably won it, but they may not know. That's what I mean. Leogri is just going to try and rat this out and get as many points as possible, but 25 overall points is looking pretty much guaranteed at this point. Elsewhere, though, there's still loads to play for. If you can get a victory here, if you can be one of the teams that does find the 12 points plus your KP, you could be changing your position from, what, top 12 to maybe top 6, depending on how many kills you get.
Gaming Gladiators eliminated. That will be the end of their day, but what a day it has been. Rondon making a little bit of a risky play, just dipping his toes into the zone to try and get an off angle and get those arc stars to do damage. But my goodness, who has just arrived from height here? It's going to be Vexed again. Rondon trying to do what he can to close things out, but not going to be able to. Matafe now on his back, unlucky left on his own, and they might just about be able to reset here, but I've got to keep my eyes on E6. They're trying to swing on this. They have so many KP in this game, Dan. This could be a big game for them as well, as K-Swinny goes in and tries to add more KP to the total.
I mean, if E6 can stay alive and they can get into the top 3, they've got a chance to push themselves into the overall top 3 as well, but not going to happen, as the Peacekeeper shot will hit. Element 6 get eliminated, and they are currently in 4th place. So now Vexed, they're in 7th. They're looking to try and push themselves into the top 6, the top 5 of the overall standings at this point. Also, J-Lings are up there. They're in 5th place right now overall. They could still find themselves in the top 2 here. They could overtake Ascend, who are currently in 2nd place. So many points in the overall series still to be played for.
J-Lings, who made the decision to fight early over at Thunderwatch to get control of the northern side of this zone. And this is what the result is. If you win that fight, if you clear your backs, you have the high ground on these 2 other teams, and you don't have to do too much. Let the other teams do the damage. You can just strike from distance. Noise is trying to just chip away at shields with this G7 scout. Nax is trying to close the distance for him to maybe get that first knock, but they've got to be careful. Last thing you want to do in this situation, even though you're trying to be aggressive, is give away a careless knock.
If J-Lings were to win this game, they would finish 2nd in today's match day. They would overtake both 2R1C and Ascend. So that's going to be their goal. Vex can still push themselves into the top 5. As for Foot, they're down in 14th at the moment, but with just a couple of KP, they could be up to 8th. So there is a lot going on for all of these squads, and they won't be doing the maths right now. Instead, they'll just be focusing on this end game. As you said, J-Ling's in the priority position. They've got the high ground, and the zone is coming towards them. So the 2 teams below them have to fight uphill. Surely, this is J-Ling's game to lose.
J-Ling's just trying to force them to fight. They just want the easy job here to clean up the pieces. They want Vex to get involved. They want Vex to try and push. They want Vex to really cause Foot some problems, and when that does happen, that's exactly what is happening, by the way. J-Lings can try and pounce. Vex having to take a little bit of zone damage. They do get that first knock as well, and surely that is just going to open the door now for J-Lings to jump off that height, to move down as Foot are eliminated. Vex won't be too far behind them. Unlucky now left on his own. It's a 3v1. Nax said, I fancy a win to close off the day. I want to finish with the most points we can. J-Lings will do exactly that. And our final game of the day here on Split 2 day number 5 belongs to J-Lings.
Oh, and J-Lings may have just been 1 KP off of getting to Ascend. We'll have to see as the final results do come in, but just the knock that might have come through from Foot rather than it being from J-Lings at the end there might be the difference between J-Lings finishing in 2nd or finishing in 3rd, but still, they jumped from, what, top 7 to top 3. I think they'll be delighted with that in the final game, but it will be the Gaming Gladiators who come out on top, just holding down that point at Stormcatcher for so long, and then it being Ascend of all teams that tried to make it and burrow their way underneath them. They would have been so delighted when they saw that in the kill feed.
Yeah, really, really good comeback from GG. I'm very impressed with what I saw from them today. And it's not just like they popped off on one map. I think consistently across the day, we saw them in end zone. So congratulations to GG for finding that form that's been missing for quite some time. And Ascend, I mean, you were saying Kishera beforehand, he was like, can we get first? I want first. Again, it just slips through their fingers. But I mean, not a bad day still for them.
Yeah, I think they'll take top 3. I mean, we need to see where that KP went, whether it's going to be a 3rd or a 2nd for them. If J-Lings were able to get those knocks, it should be a 2nd place. But ultimately, our top 3 teams are going to be GG, Ascend, and J-Lings. And I think that these are 3 of the teams that we knew are capable of it. But GG would be the biggest kind of surprise out of all of these squads because we weren't necessarily expecting them here today.
Well, let's bring Tiff back in because the day is done. The gameplay is certainly over, and we've got some business to get attended to, of course. We've got to get those final standings all sorted. But yeah, GG. What a performance from them today.
Look, Onset, I'm not going to lie. While you guys were casting that and GG was absolutely popping off, I went to my phone and I was looking because I remember post split 1, Hardeki hit us on Twitter with this gnarly twit longer talking about how he was not impressed with anything that was happening, his IGL skills, the mechanics, everything. And everything going forward for split 2, he was wanting to be reunited with Artico and he wanted to step it up. And I'm right here. Sorry for the whining, but I have made the decision to change and work harder. I want to be strong again mentally, physically, and in IGLing, start a new life, and stop being depressed. And I'm grateful for everyone for your support, but I feel as if this just kind of starts that journey back to the full Hardeki form, and I am just so excited to see that.
Everyone's been waiting for GG to return. They were one of the best teams that EMEA had for so long, and it was a surprise to just not see them at the top of the leaderboards. This is what we expect from them. This is what we wanted to see. We know how talented they are. It was just a matter of rekindling that form. It was always going to happen. You know, there's cliches for a reason, right? Form is temporary, class is permanent. This is a class lineup, and they started to show it again today.
Oh, well, it's an absolute joy. So let's cue those highlights. Let's just see their journey here throughout map number 6. And man, it's so good to see but Ascend starting it out over here in that barometer as they make their way forward, Gaskin.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really difficult zone for all those that were coming from the southern side, and the fact that Ascend had their rotation delayed by Bitfix Gaming always meant that it was going to be probably a miserable end to their day. Even if they, you know, will still be happy with a top 3 finish, I think they'll be thinking of what could have been had they not been contested and this circle just not played out the way it did. Really enjoyed watching E6 throughout today as well. I said they've been having a bit of an identity crisis coming into a few of these weeks, but it seems like they found a composition that is working for them. They're finding now their footing a little bit and are a real threat in these lobbies, and that excites me because Graceful is one of my favorite players to watch, as is K-Swinny, so it's great to see them having some success. But Command Center was just an absolute storm. I was going to say something else, but I'll just say the word storm, and it just meant that everyone was going at each other tooth and nail. But in the end, this final circle, it was pretty easy for J-Lings once they got into the high ground, and they just had to force these fights. And I'm going to keep a keen eye on this kill feed. Okay, J-Lings were able to get more KP, so it's going to be J-Lings finishing in 2nd place. So that's going to be brilliant news for the boys on J-Lings.
I was going to say, a lot of math coming out from Gaskin while casting, and let's check it out. J-Lings on the top of this match 6 results with 8 eliminations, 20 total points. Vex Gaming able to pick up 9, but E6 that you called out there, Gaskin, they had a great map number 6, able to pick up 7 eliminations for 12 points. GG still grabbing some eliminations prior to going out a little bit sooner rather than usual. Let's cut on over the back half of match number 6 because we want to see the likes of Aurora. Onset, I heard it, my heart, it hurt a little bit when you kind of came on with that line. You were like, you know, just Aurora not stepping up to the plate. Granted, I think they just need a couple more match days now that they have Sunset to R1C after winning, you know, not necessarily able to continue forward.
Yeah, I mean, Aurora certainly do need some more match days. The problem is they're running out thick and fast at the moment, and it's costing them. And I mean, you're looking at the overalls there. Aurora, 8th place. I mean, a lot of teams might be happy with 8th place, but if you've got such high expectations and you're Aurora, you want to see yourself in 1st. And unfortunately for them, it's Game Gladiators who are up there at the moment. And what a comeback, like we mentioned it was. Dan's completely right. His maths is bang on point as always. 52 points for J-Lings in 2nd. And Ascend, you would say maybe a little bit disappointed, maybe feel a bit hard done by being slowed down on all of their rotations on Storm Point today. You know, not being able to get into the places they usually like to play. 51 points for them, though. I think even though they may be a bit frustrated they didn't get 1st, it's also a good learning curve for them. Maybe if zones don't go their way, they've learned a different way to approach some of these zones.
Let's go ahead and cut on over the standings. And I think that's a valid point, right? You talk about teams like Ascend, they are powerhouses, right? They expect so much for themselves, especially, you know, the last we saw of them on LAN was just losing out by 1 3v3. You know, that 3v3 made the difference between them being LAN champs. And I feel as if that is the case, you come back in Split 2 and you are just more tough on yourself. But for the series standings, Vex Gaming still at the top, 118 eliminations, but 68 points. But the gap is very, very close. This is literally anyone's game here within that top, I would say 7 once again, Gaskin.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just about these places and people trying to get into playoffs, right? Trying to get in those spots where you're going to be a little bit more comfortable. You saw J-Lings had pushed themselves up the leaderboards, Element 6 up into 11th, as well as look at Gaming Gladiators. It was looking pretty dismal for them coming into today, but suddenly they're able to push themselves all the way up to 12th with a big 25 points to now say, hey, look, we are going to be contenders. We are going to be one of these teams you should expect to be at playoffs. Any team who wins a 25-point day, I should be seeing, and we should be seeing at playoffs, right? That should mean you are good enough to be there. But for the teams who are just outside of those playoff spots, that's when things start to get a little bit dicey, and that's when things start to get a little bit scary as we get into these further match days.
Yeah, I mean, Season 2, like Split 2, it is winding down. It's rather scary. We had those weekend match days, and I feel like so much Apex has already happened, and Split 2 playoffs is going to be here before we know it. But you sit back, I can't believe we've already been through 6 maps. Congratulations to Gaming Gladiators for taking the win overall on the day. But this is one of my favorite parts of the broadcast. We get to highlight those select few players that have really stood out to us, that had a stellar performance, that just need a little bit of extra hype. And that's why I want to present to you the Monster Energy MVP nominations. Now, it's always a good discussion, right, on Set Gaskin? I'm not sure what your script said here today, but I just feel like I want to throw it to you first. I'm curious to see who your nomination is on Set.
I am going with a man from GG. He put up an amazing performance today going into the final map. I'm pretty sure he was top of the kills leaderboard as well. And it feels very good to say this again because it feels like too long since I've said it. I am all about Hardeki today. Hardeki was the man once more, although I've got to say I could have given it to anyone that was on GG. I think they all had really, really standout performances, and it's just, honestly, it tugs on my heartstrings to just see them back because it feels like, I don't know, it's like the old friend you haven't seen for so long, and then they turn up. You go into, you know, a restaurant or something, you see him across the table, you're like, why are you here? And it's like, it doesn't matter. We're back together. A reunion has happened. And now I'm happy, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. It's great to see them do what they've done today, taking home first place. And I think they can make a real run at playoffs now. And I think that Gaming Gladiators have put it into their own hands, which is certainly great to see.
Well, honestly, I absolutely love that onset. I think Hardeki, Leogri, and Artico are absolutely frying. It's really important for them to kind of keep that momentum going once they've established themselves. It's like, you know you can do it. You know you can be a winner. You are back in that form, but I'm going to kick it to you, Gaskin. Who caught your eye today?
I think I'll go with post-kill from Ascend. I mean, the Kashira post-kill combination seems to be something that is dominating the EMEA region and dominated international competition as well. But specifically post-kill today, I think we have to focus on what happened with the ratting situation in one of the particular games where he was able to not only get his team into the further depths of top 5, but then also picking up kills as well. As a Watson, it is never fun being the rat that's left alive because you don't have the mobility. You can't really get out of fights. You can't dip, dive, dodge, and duck. Instead, you just have to do the damage. And Postkill did that. And not only that, he also ruined Vex Day at one of the points. So that would have made Yuki happy because apparently Yuki isn't a big fan of Vex. I'm going to bring that one back up. But hats off to Postkill. I think that Ascend are looking so consistent, and I love every single time they're on my screen.
They are definitely one of the most consistent teams, if not the most consistent teams in the EMEA region, and I can't wait to see them back in the Split 2 playoffs, God willingly, right? We just know that they're going to make it, but last for me, you know, I've got to give my pick as well. I want to give some attention to Yushako from 2R1C. Now, granted, they did just bring in VJax, right? So new IGL on the roller and have had a lot of really standout moments. Yushako on the Wraith, kind of excelling in grabbing a lot of cheeky angles and just being a thorn in the side for a lot of teams, especially here, taking this fight in that truck. But just those 50-50s in Climatizer, strong throughout every bit of it. And it's just like so good to see, right? To our 1C, they don't have an org. They're still grinding. So if anyone's looking to sign a solid team, I mean, look no further. Who knows? Maybe they're already in talks with people. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. But Yushako, amazing. I'm excited to see kind of what the future holds for to our 1C. But that's our picks for the Monster Energy MVP nominations. All right. We had a conversation about the players that we thought were standout performances here on set in Gaskin. I want to go ahead and bring someone on to chat. You know, we had a really fun time with Yuki earlier, but hello, what is up? Welcome. Congratulations on the success today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Like, to Notion, how we win, we just had a good moral today, had a good breakfast, walk a little bit, and that worked out for us.
I like that. I'm curious. I want to ask you a more serious question, but I feel like I need to know, what was the breakfast of champions today?
That's pretty simple. Just 2 eggs with a sandwich with a bacon. That's it's for me. I don't know about guys. That's helped me a lot.
That's Gaines food right there. That puts the muscle on. Trust me.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Sorry, Tiff.
Oh, no, go for it. I was going to say, I want to ask a more serious question because we were talking about kind of Hardeki. He made a post about how he wasn't necessarily feeling confident in his IGL skills.
Like,
I'm curious the team's dynamic going forward, because clearly something's working out now.
Yeah, the main problem for us as a team is a moral thing, and everything depends on it in Apex. So we just trying our best to fix it somehow.
I have a very simple question, because you guys, for a long time, were arguably one of the best teams in the region.
Yeah.
And then you've had this dip in form where it's been a bit quiet. How good does it feel today just to see GG back at the top of the leaderboards, up at the top of the kills? Like, how's it feeling right now for you guys to get back to the top?
It feels very good that we found a reliable template for our playstyle. So like we minimize risks and so on. So it's worked out today, and it's pretty good for us.
And you guys, I mean, an amazing 3v3 fighting team. You always have been. I feel like you thrive in lobbies where there's a lot of teams fighting on the edge. Do you feel like that is true? Do you feel like Stormpoint maybe leads a little bit more in favor to your playstyle than World's Edge?
As for me, like I find it that most of teams playing edge on both maps, not only Stormpoint, because like we were rotating on VE, we had like 3 games without scan beacon, so we just was rotating on a gray zone. Like many teams playing edge, many teams fighting edge. We just trying our best to take the most good position for us, the best.
Well, you guys did amazing. And yeah, you came out on top. It was such a good thing to see, to witness. I can't wait to see the rest of Split 2, and I can't wait to hopefully see you guys at Split 2 playoffs. Is there anything else you want to say or anyone you want to thank?
I want to thank our fans, our organization. We will try our best to perform good at the Split, and see you guys on LAN.
Let's go. Congratulations once again. It's always so good to chat with the players and hear their thoughts, especially after winning a match day. And now that we've kind of went through, discussed about the players, I want to turn your attentions to maybe an item that stood out in particular. I know for sometimes it was the gold knockdown. We've seen kind of the Prowler, some moments of success. So that's why I want to bring your attention to a beautiful discussion here by WD Black. What's in your pack? All right, boys, time to get to work. This is going to be really interesting on set because sometimes it's my favorite when it's a weapon, right? It's just which weapon is going to stand out the most. We have a lot of nerfs, we have a lot of buffs. It's always what's going to catch our eye.
It's an interesting one. And there's one thing I can guarantee is that in my pack will be this gun, because I believe we're going to be talking about Flatline right now. Flatline in my opinion, best utility gun in the game, most satisfying gun in the game. If you can hit the one clips, it is just the all-round beast that really does just, you know, put yourself in any situation with the flatline. You're going to have a lot of success, and you can see it here from Nasky. The real cool control is something that takes a little bit of time to learn, for sure, but once you get it down, I know you love it as well, Dan. It is just such a satisfying gun to use.
There's something about the hipfire crosshair as well that just gets me going. Honestly, I want to pick that thing up and I want to get in people's faces and I want to start crouching and drilling because it is unreal in close range and medium range, to be honest. I can't quite figure it out with long range, but you get me mid to close range and I am in love with the gun, especially now I've switched to controller, I must say. But, you know, the flatline, I think that most people will be picking it up. It is not a gun that you ignore when it is on the floor or, you know, if it's in your pack.
Gaskin, we can no longer be friends. Don't ever say that again. As a mouse and keyboard enjoyer, we can no longer be friends.
It's fine if you want to put yourself at a disadvantage. It's okay.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. It's all about consistency, right? And I guess controller gets you there, but we're not going to start that. If you go to Cutnoid's Twitter, you can see 47 seconds of Hardeki flatline ASMR. So I just wanted to harp on that if you didn't get enough flatline from the What's in Your Pack presented by WD Black. What a little promo there. Shout out Cutnoid. I mean, seriously, if you're going to get 47 seconds of flatline ASMR, that's everything that we could potentially need. But I cannot believe that we've already finished another day for the EMEA region on set.
It's going too quick. I gotta be honest with you. I think I'm starting to worry. Like I'm like, wait, we're almost done. Like, what am I gonna do in my life? But it's been a very interesting day. I think the fact that we went all the way down to the final game today and there was so much still on the line as far as placements, who was going to win, who was going to get second, top 10, whatever it would be, plus we've had the return to form of GG, is showing that everyone is starting to find a level of comfort now in this region. It would feel in this season, in this meta game that we're seeing being played. I think it's fascinating to watch the fact that, you know, we've seen these teams kind of exchange places all the way through today, and we've only got a certain amount of days left. We're over the halfway point now of the season almost, and I tell you what, it was nervy today, especially in that final game, watching these teams set up. And I've got the feeling it's only going to get even more nervy and more almost like worrying to watch people make decisions because you're worried about them making the wrong one instead of the right one. And I just feel like when we get to those final moments and we can send those 10 teams to LAN, it's going down to the wire, is all I'm saying. It's going down to the wire.
It's challenging, right? Because there are so many teams, and obviously us as casters, we want to see everyone succeed. We want to see the best teams going to LAN, and I want to say, I feel as if EMEA, the region as itself, is just constantly pushing itself to be better, and then thus far sending the best of the best to the Split 2 playoffs. Gaskin, curious of your final thoughts from the day.
Yeah, I mean, at Split 1 playoffs, we weren't able to send our number 1 EMEA team over, and Ascend still finished second. That shows how strong the region is. I mean, I think that really Ascend put the region on the map once more. They had the weight of that pressure on their shoulders, but now there's teams that are also showing they can be up there with Ascend on their best days. Like Gaming Gladiators, imagine if we got GG at LAN and we saw the likes of Hardeki and Leogri, who we were just speaking to, actually being able to have those crazy 3v3 engagements. I cannot wait to see who makes it to LAN. We've still got a little ways to go yet, but we're starting to get an idea now of who those teams might be.
I mean, look, I remember where I was during that Ascend and TSM fight, so I can only imagine, like my skin was crawling with goosebumps, so I can only imagine how the teams feel in their booths competing live on LAN, because that is what all of these players strive for. And seeing GG take home a match day victory and put themselves one step closer to getting back into LAN and being in person and competing, it's just an absolute joy. So congratulations, you guys called the action impeccably, if I do say so myself, two of my favorite casters in the entire world. So always a pleasure to share the desk with you guys, but thank you so much for your work today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now that that's done, Onset Gaskin are resting up. We have to turn our attentions forward because the action is not done. EMEA may be done and dusted. APAC North happened last night, but we're going to turn our tides to North America, happening later this afternoon, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. A lot of questions to be answered, right? I know all of you fans in chat asking, where TSM? Well, they'll be here tonight. And we're gonna have an immense battle on Storm Point. Will BBB contest TSM at the wall? Well, only time will tell, but FaZe, Lanimal, so many teams that are looking to find themselves on the path to Split 2 playoffs, but only a few more days of action left. So the question is, who will come out on top. So make sure you're here. Get your popcorn. It's going to be stressful. No, it's going to be a good time. Not going to lie. I'll be here. Gaskin on set will be back on the mic to call all the action. But as always, you can find all of the information on Play Apex Esports. Look, I can get it out, I swear. Play Apex Esports on Twitter and YouTube. Also smash the follow here on Twitch. It's going to be an absolute journey, and I cannot wait to see you there.
Pretty sure the Vex have no idea that there is going to be a team just above them. They are shredded through the smoke.